Oh, there's already people there. Oh, well, we lost. There's already people waiting for us. Do y'all know when the Hurburks came to Cork or the history Jesus? They're attacking you straight away, Michal. They're attacking you straight away with the questions.
Geez. I haven't even. They haven't even loaded in. Oh well. Okay, I have to click that button.
Have you prepared your stuff in there? You've got your YouTube. Oh, you're streaming on the old Tickety Talk as well, are you?
Oh, but do we get the chat now from TikTok?
I hope. Well, I'm not sure because it was acting up on Instagram as well. How are you keeping, lads? How are you all doing this morning? So it's me, Philip Hayes from Irish
Kind of.
Medieval History. But today I'm accompanied by Michal from Clans and Dynasties. So Michal is going to be Michal. You're probably going to end up taking a blunt of a lot of people's questions in general. I'll cover the history of Munster in the late medieval period, but a good chunk of the personal questions that people will be after, you'll definitely be taking a good chunk of it today. So
Yeah. I mean, obviously, normally what would happen before I come on a live and sort of ask about questions, I would spend a good few days sort of leading up to just reminding and revising. But obviously, the topic would normally just be surnames. But obviously, I had to incorporate some of my revision into Munster history as well. So if I don't know your name, like if I can't remember where they're from, or then you'll just have to write the question. I'll come back to you. But I do have a lot stored in here, so you're all right. There's at least a couple of thousand surnames in here that should keep us going.
that's the main thing, anyway. So we got our first name here, or do you want to go through the basics, or how do you want to go about this,
Well,
Michal?
I think if we because there's the history of Munster, and then I think we'll work into the surnames as we sort of incorporate them into the story of Munster's history during from 1300 to 1500. We can start sort of in because you're naturally going to speak about certain families anyway as we're talking about the history.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I could easily start it up there, and you can start, stopping me and taking bits out because at the very, very start of Munster's history, one particular family that completely dominates the Munster region is definitely the Owenachta. Like at the very, very start, up around Cashel. I want to see how much detail this photo has. I suppose where the surname Butler is up around Tipperary is today. And that would be the region at the time that was definitely dominated by the Cashel, and from there you've got the Cashel Owenachta that dominate a good chunk of the whole region of Munster at the time, and was definitely the one dominant family. Whatever happened to Owenachta, Michal? What modern families start to appear, especially in the late medieval period? I'm assuming it's the likes of the McCarthy's and stuff that start to appear and pull out of that one.
Yeah, so as you stated, the Corca Lyra or Corca Lugda, depending on pronunciation, are the original sort of owners of Munster and parts of Ushriga. And then they are fractured, and the Ushriga kick the Corca Lugda out, and that's families such as the Coffeys, the O'Driscolls. They're kicked out, and with that, the Owenachta rise up, and the Owenachta Cashel eventually becomes the dominant family within that. You have obviously the Owenachta Rathlin, there's a few others that are the Owenachta Glenmarach, who are some of them are related and some of them are incorporated into their genealogies or edited to be fabricated within the Owenachta family tree. So you have the McCarthys who eventually become the Owenachta, the leaders of the Owenachta Cashel, along with their sort of septs like the McAuliffes, the O'Sullivans. But you also have the O'Donohues down in the south. You have families not only that are not associated with these wider tribal groups, such as the Corcadovna, who are the O'Sheas, the Falvies, they're down in the Kerry, and then you've got the Kira Lucra, who are in the north of Munster, who are the O'Connor Kerrys, basically. So there's a lot of families, sort of, and a lot of big tribal groups that are playing and trying to jostle their position within Munster, what we would consider Munster. So obviously the O'Briens are sort of fall into that category. The Dalcash sort of fall into the Munster politics. The Icabra Lucra, no, the Icabra, who are the Collins families and some Murphy branches. So there's probably like well over sort of, I think there's up to like 10,000 Irish surnames, and most of them have multiple origin points. So a lot of these names you will associate with other areas, like O'Neill. Many people associate that with Ulster, but there are separate, unrelated O'Neills in Cork, and who are part of the Dacia, another tribal group, and then you have another O'Neill branch who are part of the Dalcash or the Corker Basket. I'm not quite sure, but they're a Thomond family. So you can see how all these sort of branches, all these surnames that we associate with a specific area, are not just from one locale. They are names adopted because they're patronymic, which means they are just taken on from a individual's name. So, my son would become McMihal or McMichael, or his descendants would become O'Michael. Say, for instance, you're going to have many Michaels within Ireland, as an example. So this is why multiple branches pop up. But obviously, some are more tested than others. Some rise to, much more higher degrees of prominence than others. And then another family to mention just quickly, just to give you an idea of Munster, because especially during this time period, what we're talking about from 1300 to 1500, you have Norman families who are coming in, but you also have Irish families that are adopting names that are similar to Norman names and now have been anglicised to the point where they're unrecognisable today, such as the Barry surname. You've got the O'Bara family who are anglicised their name to Barry later on, and they actually the Barrys from Wales actually take over their lands, so their names are already similar from the offset. So again, a lot of people may make people ask questions during the live, going, well, wait a minute, I see this name and it's never mentioned here, but obviously, like I say, there's a reason for that, and maybe we'll explain in more detail later.
For sure. Just a little bit of a fuzzy sound. Is that coming on your side? Just a wee bit.
Let me move this. Let me see if it's probably my microphone just too close.
Yeah, that's definitely it. When I heard the extra, I was like, yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's gone now.
It's gone now. Okay, hang on. I need to adjust.
Right. Any questions to do with any surnames, guys? Definitely put it in the comment section below. Mihal spends his life researching Irish names, especially during the medieval era. So definitely comment below on any surnames you'd like to cover. I don't think you were asking earlier about the TikTok comments coming over on this side. I don't think the TikToks are coming. Yeah, comments are coming over. So I think we'll have to check on over to see if the TikTokers are okay every once in a while.
Or they can. I think just because of if they're it'll just be view only unless you just want to come across to YouTube just for tonight, and then we'll try and figure out the chat thing because when I was looking before last week, it was kind of hard to keep track of the actual chat itself. And since I'm actually going to be speaking a lot more than I did last week, I won't really be able to look at both. So if you're on TikTok, you're on view only. I'm sorry, unless you come across the YouTube.
I'll see what I can do. I'll actually see if I can fly over to your TikTok there and see if I can do anything. But One second there. Yeah, the Onactor is quite interesting. The only problem the Onactor seriously have is definitely going into the what was it called, around the 10th and 11th century, when you have, for them, obviously not for me, of course, the pesky Dal Cash, who smash into the side of the Onacta and start tearing out they start carving out their own territories and stuff up around that area. See if I can zoom in and show you guys that one. Where you can see, oh yeah, you can see the O'Briens on the map, so you can see straight away that would be at the time the Dal Cash areas, and it would be eventually the Dal Cash would be the O'Briens, and the Owen Octa, one of the main branches of them, unless Michal wants to correct me on that. This one is the McCartys. The poor McCartys are kicked out of Tipperary, where the Butlers are located now, and forced down to the bottom of the Cork area, where they kind of make that their main home for a short period of time until the arrival of the likes of the Cogans and the Fitzstevens, who decide to boot them around for a bit. Is there any way more families that kind of tear out and elaborate out of the likes of the McCartys and the O'Briens? Or the
There's loads. First, I'll just say hi to Kat. Yes, we're down in the south, and welcome to Satan's Kitten, who came across from TikTok. It's the right thing to do. The the O'Briens have the McNamara's, the Cullens, the McMahons, the McClancys, the McInernys, the Considines, the McGraths, the O'Rodens, so a lot of these, and then there's not only that, the O'Kennedys, O'Meara, depending on which genealogy you want to use, because again, many families are, a lot of these families are fabricating their links to wider king groups or wider ruling families to marry up and to show loyalty to this family. It's a very common trend in Irish medieval history to do it. All families do it several times. And it's the same all through Europe. It's to try and link them to more prestige or to justify their right to rule or whatever. You've obviously got them. You've got, like I say, the McAuliffe, all those names you had on that map, the Cadigans, the McAuliffes, they're all sort of associated with the McCarthy surname, McDonoughs. And not only that, McCarthy breaks out into several branches. You've got the McCarthy Ray, McCarthy of Muskerry, the McCarthys of Duhallow, who sometimes take on the name McDonough. And then you've got some really powerful not the Cashel families, like the O'Sullivans, the O'Donohues, the O'Mahoneys, the O'Keefes, again O'Meara, just like say depending on which genealogy you want to go for, the O'Connell. There's a lot of them, and not only that as well, then you have the families who are related to them, but you have the families who are the vassals to them or under their servitude, like Gallowglass, especially during this period, 1300, 1500, McSheehy's, McSweeney's, the McDonalds, the McQuillans, all Gallowglass families who are associated with Munster, especially during the 14th century. And then you've got, again, you'll have families who are moving around Munster at the time, the learned class, the McGraths, the O'Dailys, the O'Higginses, poets and historians who are sort of like just floating around and being given land for their patronage, and setting up, small clusters of families in all these sort of weird and strange places.
Oh yeah, for sure. Just a note over on TikTok there, because I actually got over to your TikTok there. It seems to have not gotten the poor memo. So the topic we're covering today is Munster. So we're trying to cover, we had an request about 2 weeks ago, and people were requesting for us to cover the late medieval Gaelic families of Munster. So today we're mostly covering Munster. I know over on TikTok, a lot of the comments are just like, cover this family, that family, this family. And it's like a lot of these families are actually outside of the Munster region. So we won't be focusing on them today. We mostly will be covering, as a first few comments on the YouTube one, which is the likes of the Murphys and the O'Sullivans and stuff. What is the story? I can actually, if I can zoom, because I can see the Murphys on the left side, but anytime I zoom in, it cuts out the poor Murphys. So maybe I could find a way to zoom in without. No, it doesn't seem to be working like that.
So where's the Murphy? Just because I don't know which branch of Murphy you're looking at. Let me see if I can.
So what branch of Murphys are you guys looking for in the Munster region, by the way? Because Munster is kind of the main one we're covering
So
today.
the Murphys and the Collinses were part of the Cabra. No, the Econal Gavra, sorry. The Econal Gavra are from just south of Limerick. And what happened was they were under pressure from the Fitzgeralds, Fitzmaurices, O'Briens. They moved with the O'Connells and the Murphs. So the O'Connells, O'Collinses, sorry. The O'Collins were the primary leaders of the group. And they brought their septs with them, such as the Murphys, down to Cork, and they became loyal vassals of the McCarthys. For several centuries in the annals, there's often references to this particular Murphy family, who and the O'Collinses, who are, often partake in all the events the McCarthys are involved in, because they're very loyal to the McCarthys for helping them escape, that pressure from the O'Briens, from the Fitzmaurices, and give them land and titles further down south near modern day Cork City. So you will find, but obviously some Murphys will have stayed up in the Limerick area too. So you will find Murphys top and bottom of Cork and Munster who are related to each other. So yeah, it's just
so even in the medieval period itself, the late medieval period, you would have had different branches of the Murphy and stuff. How did they tell the difference amongst each other? Was it they referred to themselves as like Murphy Moore and Murphy this and Murphy that, or did they just all call themselves Murphys?
Yeah, no, they probably wouldn't even, they would have very rarely even used their surnames, their wider surnames, depending on, it would depend on the context where they were. If you're traveling further afield, you maybe might use it to distinguish yourself from other individuals, if you're traveling to Dublin or whatever. But in a local context, you wouldn't have used it. In fact, many people, surnames, although we're the first European country to adopt surnames, we're not the first European country to have a homogenization of every person of every class having a surname. In fact, some Irish people up to the 19th century didn't have a standardized surname. They were still using patronymic surnames, so saying Michael, son of Martin, son of Sean, son of John, son of, and that's what they were doing to distinguish themselves from others near. And we know the O'Sullivans, again, is another good example. And Kat saying, "How did you get me to come down to Munster?" Yeah, well, it was long persuasion, but yeah, I'm down here now talking about Munster. So, but the O'Sullivans today, it's well recorded. It's well recorded even today that, and Owen would have been here to clarify this, that even today in Kerry, there's so many O'Sullivan branches that to help distinguish themselves from distant cousins or whatever, so they know that they're not intermarrying close relatives, they'll have a nickname associated with them. So it could be the O'Sullivans of Killarney, the O'Sullivan Bui, the O'Sullivan Yellow, all these sort of wee nicknames that sort of help distinguish them from other O'Sullivans in the area, so everyone knows who they're related to. And that's something that was long standardized in Irish history, that you would have this sort of, you would have your personal name, you would have your patronymic name, your father's name. You would maybe have your surname, and then you would have a like nickname associated with your branch of the surname, whether it be more, because that means the greater or great.
Yeah.
That's normally the ruling family.
Oh, right. Because I did notice that McCarthy-Moore dominates up around the Baraty area. So, sorry, not Baraty, Blarney. I should know. That's only down the road from me. But yeah, I did notice that it was the McCarthy-Moore that dominated Blarney. So that's very interesting that you would have the Moore as the dominant kind of clan. That's fascinating.
Traditionally,
Yeah.
but the O'Sullivans have it's funny because the O'Sullivan Moore and the O'Sullivan Beara, at times I would say the O'Sullivan Beara are actually more dominant than the O'Sullivan Moore line. But the
Ah,
O'Sullivan Moore is still the leading line. It's the senior line in the family's history in the rulership. So but the O'Sullivan Bearers every now and again would probably pull the strings a wee bit before being cut down to size through political maneuverings and stuff. So, but generally the Moore surname is the senior line, is seen as the senior line. But like I say, O'Sullivan Beara is they've given themselves a locale name. They're from the Beara Peninsula, so they're associated with that area. And again, these are dominant families, quite well known families. And when you get down to the local families on the nicknames could just be crazy to a street, not like or a topographic, like a river, or so it'd be the O'Sullivans by the river or O'Sullivans by the church, and then families like that would sometimes just adopt that as their surname.
yeah.
So they just drop the O'Sullivan thing altogether because they're like everyone knows we're O'Sullivans, so we'll just be,
The Michaels.
Yeah, so I've seen a couple of questions were coming up there. So.
Oh, Roger. Any question in particular you want to poke at?
No, I mean, some people asking about like wider families like O'Sullivan. But I just think if we jump into, what is the picture of what's going on in 1300, 1500, like I say, a lot of these names will pop up, especially in my answers. What's happening, who's involved, and from 1300 to 1500, what is the like the live says, what's the picture of late medieval Munster? Yeah, I'd like to say, someone was asking about the O'Briens. They'll come up because they're very heavily involved
Yeah,
from
massively.
from the 9th century or 10th century till
They just keep going. They just don't die. Because I even what was it this week? I don't know if you were watching my shorts and stuff, and also from my Patreon, we were covering the siege of Limerick, and I kind of posted up a short that was kind of a follow up of that. And they just don't die. Like you have the Cogans, you have the Fitzstevens, and you have the English sending their peak military forces at Limerick. And yet Limerick stands for a good chunk. What was it, from 1170 up to around 1210? You just have siege after siege after siege of Limerick, and the O'Briens just don't die. And then just as they're anytime they just go in to hop over the walls to capture Limerick, the O'Briens are just like the night before, just like bye bye, and then just set fire to Limerick and buzz off up to the Clough Mountains and stuff. So the O'Briens just don't die. They just keep going even today. And what's crazy about today is that they have, I'm pretty sure, maybe you can correct me on this one, is that the O'Briens have the biggest claim to the kingship of Ireland today. So if Ireland decided they wanted to go royalist, I'm sure it's the O'Briens that have the number one claim today. So any O'Briens in the comment section, go get your stick out. There could be an opportunity for you to take kingship.
I think the O'Neills, many O'Neills would still challenge that.
Oh yeah, you see Ned already in the comment section. just needs to kill 26 more people, and he's sorted. What else do we have going on here?
Yeah, I mean, like you say, but I mean, it's funny because we're referring to historical records, but I recently found or read online that the area between 1350 to 1500 is known as the tunnel period because there's actually the scarcity of like administrative records. You know,
Mm.
the effective area covered by the royal government. So these are English records primarily. You know, it shrank and English attention was more focused on with wars with France and elsewhere. That fewer official documents survive about Ireland during this period than any other period because, like I say, the English sort of administration is focused on far more pressing matters than Munster. You know, obviously, Munster's history in this period is sort of kind of marked by the decline of the direct English colonial control, the rise of consolidation of powerful Gaelic lordships, and obviously typical chronic internal warfare. But the provinces, you know, it becomes a patchwork of regional powers, Gaelic dynasties, like I said, like McCarthy's or Brian's, and Anglo-Norman English families like Butlers and Fitzgeralds are continuously competing and cooperating in complex ways, you know, in this period. So, you know, Munster is kind of regarded as one of these areas where the Plantagenet rule is, you know, remained relatively effective compared with other regions like Ulster, but the rule operated through powerful local magnates rather than through like strong direct royal administration. You know, it was part of the wider lordship of Ireland, but effectively as a lordship beyond the pale, with looser royal control.
Yeah, it's a bit wild, all right, with the likes of Desmond Fitzgerald. Definitely, the Desmond Fitzgeralds doing whatever they wanted going into the likes of the late medieval period. Straight away from the get go, the likes of the Fitzgeralds, what was it, the Desmond Fitzgeralds and the Butlers. Just kind of do what they want, you know, during the Tolbert Butler feud, where they're allegedly not at war with the English king, actually, going into this era of the late medieval period. What happens is that there's kind of an argument between Tolbert and Butler, and at the time of the late Hundred Years' War, the Fitzgeralds and the Butlers are starting to get very, very independent, and they're really starting to take control of the Irish Parliament. But because the King of England, Henry V, he goes over to France and passes away. I don't know if I can say on YouTube how he passes away. He basically poos himself to death over in France. And then Henry VI takes over. But Henry VI, first off, he's too young to really control what's going on here. And then he has an inherent disability. He's not really all there in the mind and stuff. There's kind of like an illness that's running through the family. And so when he does eventually take over, it's more or less his wife and other people that are trying to run the realm, and not the King of England himself, Henry VI. So at this particular moment in time, it's Tolbert who is in control of the realm. And so the Butlers and the Fitzgeralds, the Desmond Fitzgeralds, end up going to war with Tolbert. But the thing is, which I find very funny, is that Butler is always quick to remind everyone, hey, look, I'm not actually at war with England. I'm perfectly fine. I'm at war with Tolbert in a private war. And it gets even more funny then when Tolbert takes a holiday over to France. And it's there in France that Butler and the Fitzgeralds turn around and says, sure, we're not at war with England. We can take a holiday over to England. And so while Tolbert at the same time fighting Joan of Arc, because this is the era of Joan of Arc, Tolbert and Fitzgerald actually take a holiday over to England, which I always find hilarious. It's the fact that technically they're sort of at war with England, but because they're technically not, but what was it? Fitzgerald and the Butlers take a holiday to go and see their cousins, which I think is absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, they're also the Butlers. They're you know, in the 14th century in Tipperary, they became Liberty or the County Palatines. So the Earls of Ormond Butler. This meant that the Earl exercised almost all civil and criminal jurisdiction within the country or within the county, and only like very serious crimes were reserved for the crown. You know, this sort of they had their own autonomy, and it made Ormond the most like powerful regional lordship in Ireland. And the arrangement that arrangement actually lasted until the early 18th century, I think 1715, 1714. So the butlers held sort of, they not only were able to play this sort of, we're not at war, we are at war, but they were also, they had legal backing to be a bit more, push the boundaries more than any other family.
Mm.
But that doesn't mean they were like indestructible. Not only were they constantly in a war with the Fitzgeralds, they've got all we have the Gaelic resurgence, where the O'Briens of Barhello, they sort of take land in Tipperary um, around the reign of Henry III, and they would hold it right up until the Tudor period, showing that even this powerful family that was able to sort of almost run its own ship and do whatever it felt like, still had trouble with families like the O'Briens of Barhello, the O'Kennedys, and their local allies like the O'Mearas were constantly at war, and constantly feuding and constantly just keeping pressure on the butlers.
For sure. I just want to cover this question over on TikTok there, and then I want to pop over to Dennis's question because poor Dennis has been waiting a while there before we started covering his. I want to cover Dennis's one, not only because I know him over on Patreon, so he gets favoritism, but also but also the fact that he actually specifically called out a specific branch of the McCarthys. So, are you aware of that branch of the McCarthys, Michal, before I actually start bombarding you? Because maybe you actually don't know that branch.
No, I don't know the McCarthy
Ah,
Bones, although it is a version of white. So,
mm,
but uh, my knowledge of the McCarthys wouldn't extend far beyond the main branches, like I said earlier, the Musgraves,
yeah.
the Duhallows, the primary movers and shakers.
Mm,
Obviously, whenever I do get round to doing a video on the McCarthys, I will do extensive research to find these tiny little branches that exist.
yeah.
But to remember all the tiny families and all the towns and little holdings they had
Mm,
is an area of knowledge that I don't think I would ever have, even
yeah.
as someone who specifically studies this every day. Like I say, I think that without variations, there's up to like 6,000 surnames that
Yeah.
and then if you break that down into each little village holding, um, I think unless I've got ChatGPT sort of stapled to my forehead, I don't think I could get
Like,
that
the thing is, I do love Irish clan history and everything, but the disadvantage of it then is the endless amount of branches. And then on top of that, again, someone decided it would be an amazing idea to invade our poor little island and then start destroying our literature, just start chucking our books into the fires over in Cash, especially Cashel, where a good chunk of the history is. I remember Kevin Moore when he was writing the Finn cycle was ranting one day about what was it, the burnings that we see in Cashel. Anytime you have the likes of the Cromwells and the Tudors just coming into the island and then going over to the Cashel region and then decided, okay, time to start burning these books now. It's definitely why we're missing so much literature in the Munster region compared to up in your part, Michal, that you actually specialise in up in Ulster, where you guys have the likes of the Annals of Ulster and stuff. So although there is still book burning going on in the Ulster region, it doesn't help that we have certain people coming in and burning place. But then at the flip side, it doesn't help that we decided to have a civil war where we also decided it'd be a great idea to burn some medieval literature as well. So I can't blame everybody, like, especially when the main burning happened within ourselves. Like, just popping back over. Oh, yes, that was another one I wanted to cover over on your TikTok side, Michal. There's one question there asking about the Cogans. I am fully aware that the Cogans do invade into the Munster region and do. I did cover the Cogans actually this week over my Patreon. The Cogans come over and they are granted land in Cork, from my knowledge. I don't know if they're still on the map here in the late medieval period. They seem to be missing on the map, so they must have lost territory at some stage in Cork.
No, that's just some of that's a personal map that I've been working through on my
Mm,
lives with people. So whenever they've asked, we've been filling. I haven't had a Kogan sort of come up, and I do have. Outside of that screen, you can't really see it. It's a list of Norman surnames that are coming
mm,
through. Although the Kogans did, like every family, gain and lose land
mm.
multiple times during those centuries.
Yeah. Yeah, the Kokens are a fascinating one, all right, because of the fact that they go into that territory. I can't remember if they bloody took the east side or the west side, because they straight away start in the kind of east side, west side. They go in and they attack the McCartys. So straight away they have the old blood feud with the McCartys. And then with the Fitzstevens, they agreed to have one side, and that the Fitzstevens take the other side. I think it's unless you're correcting me on this one, I think it's the west side that what was it, the Cogans take over in the Cork area. Don't quote me on that one, because I'm probably wrong on that one. It could be the
Well,
east side that
do
they
you,
take over.
do you have the map of Kilkenny I sent earlier?
Kilkenny, 1 second. I have plenty of maps of yours. Is it this one?
No, no.
No, it's the other one. That one?
Right. So you can see here, these are castled on in Kilkenny by three different families, the Montgarrets, the Graces, and the Purcells.
Mm,
But you can see how they are separated over all distances within the Kilkenny area. And they would have owned castles probably outside of that area too. But it's just to show that, like, um, whenever you're talking about land, family land was often separated all over the place. In fact, there was uh, a normal thing to do within medieval England was when you were granted land was to make sure that your land was consolidated into one area, so
mm,
that if you did want to rebel, you didn't have all your troops in one area. So the plan was that your land was separated all over the kingdom or area or whatever, that whenever you decided to rebel against your overlord or your king, that when you did raise your troops, they were scattered, and you would be forced to, have a meeting area or consolidate them. So that would give the royal forces or whoever you're fighting time to raise their army. Um, so you often find it was a little bit different in Ireland with Norman lords, because they conquered land first. So obviously they're just taking what's in front of them all the time.
mm.
But it started to go that way later on.
For sure. Just at any time there, Mihal, because there's so many popping up both on TikTok and over on our own chats. And I apologize, by the way, for constantly touching my eyes. I woke up and my eyes are still burning on my head from yesterday. I was looking at the screen a lot yesterday because I've been doing a whole load of research into Prince John in Ireland in 1185. And today, now I'm looking at the screen again and my eyes burned out of my head. So I apologize if I keep touching and rubbing my eyes today. But yeah, Mihal, if there's any question, or sorry, any families in particular you want to pull out, in particular, guys, we're covering the Munster region today. An interesting question for myself, and Mihal could probably elaborate on this one. But from what I know, the main branch of the De Clare family is knocked out just at the very start of the late medieval period at the Battle of Dyce O'D against the O'Briens. At the Battle of Dyce O'D against the O'Briens, the main branch of the Declares are wiped out of it. What happens is that the main head of the Declares is killed in the Battle of Dyce O'D. The battle starts off as an ambush with the O'Briens and the likes of the MacMoors and stuff in there as well. I think you've covered the Battle of Dyce O'D as well beforehand, haven't you?
Yes. There's a
Mm,
video on the channel, all video like 4 years old. But yes, there's a
yeah.
battle. Yeah, and like you say, yeah, the declares are sort of taken out of the political picture especially in Thomond at the time. And actually, from that, all that's left from the family is heiresses.
Mm,
And they're not in a position that by this stage the O'Briens are fully in control of County Clare,
mm,
and they're not in a position to claim their inheritance. So they don't. Basically, they just sort of let it disappear, probably with the hopes of that an English lord or Norman lord, may take parts of Clare, and then they can put their request into the king to say, that's our land. But it never really happens.
Thank you so much.
The O'Briens are so integrated so quickly into the politics of with the Fitzgeralds, the Burkes, and the Butlers, due to being surrounded on all sides, that they obviously integrate themselves into that sort of political world and eventually assimilate into the English system. So yeah, that's what happens. You are right. The declare sort of disappear. It's actually the ODs who start the battle of Dice. Oh well, the declare start the battle of the ODs. The O'Briens turn up late because they're lost. They don't know, and this is funny. This is a funny thing about medieval battles. We don't realize they're relying on. They don't know where Declare's army is. They know he's in their area. He's coming for them. They know that, but they don't know where he's coming from. So he's marching around. The O'Briens are marching around looking for him, and Declare's doing the same thing. He's marching around looking for the O'Briens, and he comes across Dice-Erdee at the castle of Dice-Erdee, and the ODs obviously assemble their forces and start fighting him. And they're getting absolutely hammered. They're surrounded on all sides. They're literally down to their last few men. But all the stragglers who are retreating from the battle, both of Norman and Irish sort of stock, sort of just pulling themselves away from the battle because they're wounded or retreating or whatever. It's what sort of helps guide the O'Briens to the battle, because they're suddenly wandering around going, "Oh, hang on, guys, there's a load of guys with their arms cut off here at the side of this road." And they ask the guy, "What's going on? Where's this battle happening?" And they end up pummeling in behind the Clare's line.
For everyone there that's popping back into bed there on the Irish side, thank you so much for joining us over in Ireland, guys. That means a world for us. And anyone who wants to stay up late for us, thank you so much for all the support. I know everybody, especially lately, for everything that's been going on in Ireland and everything, finds it difficult to support us financially and everything. But viewing our channels, watching the advertisement and stuff obviously means the world to us, and is a great way to sponsor the channel. And definitely subscribing to myself in Irish medieval history and Michal, who's over in Clans and Dynasties, both on TikTok and on YouTube, and even Instagram. I'm over on Instagram. You're not too active over on Instagram, Michal. You need to start catching up there for sure.
I know. I'm too idle. But I've actually got ADHD, which makes it a bit problematic. I go through bursts every year, like I'm just uploading. But I will start trying to be better at Facebook, at Instagram, and stuff like that. I know I owe it to my subscribers and my paying members to be a bit more active. I've been pulled up about this before, and actually saying that, thanks to Bobby O'Brien. I don't know which channel that was to, but for the $5 gifted, whoever's channel that's on, I've reminder Phillips. Thank you very much.
I have it here. That means the absolute world from us, lads. I'm over in I'm actually over in Japan right now because of the housing crisis and stuff. Couldn't keep it with everything going up so expensive over there right now for the time being. But at the flip side, so I originally actually am from Cork up in Mallow, and I did tourism in 2015, and I did tours up around the Blarney Castle and also up in Kilmallock, medieval tours as well. I was working with Trevor McCarthy for a wee bit as well. So I did medieval tours up around the Munster region that we're covering today. And we're mostly focusing on Irish families today, especially since Michal is over on the channel as well. So any questions to do with Munster families, definitely put it down below. Michal, yourself, you're more or less special in Ulster. That's definitely your baby, isn't it? Especially with the families up there.
I would say it's my baby, but it's not the area I'm most familiar with, in the sense of I started my love started with Brian Boru. So the
so you're one of us, really.
Well, he was my first love, but I had to let him down, break his heart when I realized that now Glundove existed. And
Jesus. Typical Ulster man, can't wait to leave us.
Yeah.
Uses us and abuses us, and then runs back up the north again, huh?
So I have far more knowledge of Dalcash, in fact, because I focused on that family so much that when I
Mm,
moved to Ulster, I started focusing on the whole of Ulster, which is there's a lot of obviously tribal groups, and our history is a bit murkier in the north as well, um, mainly because of tribal groups like the Cruithne or the
mm,
Cruithne, the Dalriada, Dalriada, Dalfiatuk. They're well, not the Dalfiatuk, but they are actively trying to associate themselves with the Kenaloan, and the
mm,
Kenaloan are actively trying to absorb tribal groups within their family trees.
mm,
That it gets very murky very quickly. Um, whereas the a lot of the Munster families, a lot of the wider tribal groups were able to sort of maintain a sort of semblance of dominance within their own areas that they could claim, you know,
mm.
keep their traditional heritage with just some slight minor tweaking. Kat, thank you very much for the $3 USD. Thank you. Yeah,
Jesus, it's
you
so
do
really
not
so
have to get.
nice.
And Pedro, I've only got €2 on my account. Nobody needs to gift, guys. It's very nice, but nobody needs to gift. It
Mm,
is much appreciated, but you don't have to. I don't know about Philip, but I'm a big supporter on education should be free. Um, so I will always provide it for free.
yeah.
But
You see,
at the same time, I do need to eat as well.
yeah, exactly the same thing. We all need to eat as well, but at the same time, I fully understand that everyone is struggling right now. I have like obviously, I wouldn't be the richest man on the planet and still trying to get by on everything. But yeah, Japan isn't too bad. Well, we'll find out this week because there's been a sudden drop, bouncing around of the currency in Japan. Especially with poor, I don't know what the hell China's up to. Like, I'm a bit freaked out with all the politics going on between China and Japan right now, especially with me in the island. I might be joining you now tomorrow. Myself and the wife suddenly popping up with our bags, knocking at your door, Mihal. Mihal, you wouldn't have a corner for the two of us to sleep in, would you? But regardless, yeah, prices in Ireland have been jumping up like there's no tomorrow with the food and everything else. It's gotten very bad. How bad is it on the north side, Mihal?
Oh, I don't. Yeah,
Well, there you go.
I couldn't even afford a cardboard box, soaking in the river.
Mm, 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 mm.
um, it's crazy prices at the minute, but I think that's something that's felt throughout the world at the minute. So,
Mm,
it's just for all those things, unfortunately.
yeah.
Sorry, someone was just asking there. The guy Pedro was asking Whelan. They might be on that map that you have there.
Oh, this particular family. I was just about to highlight his other comment as well because I'm actually from Mallow as well. And I know Mallow was dominated by the Desmond Fitzgeralds. That was their main area to hold, especially Mallow Castle, for a long time until we came up to the Desmond Fitzgeralds when they were completely blown out of it during, what was it, the Desmond. Did I just say chapter and Desmond? Anyway, Desmond's Rebellion, anyway. Is when they get completely blown out of it by the English. And it's from there that the English start to occupy the Mallow region and build the modern day Mallow Castle, which has nothing on the castle that we see in the ruins and stuff, which was built during the William Knight Jacobite Wars and eventually had to be burnt down at one stage during the fighting and stuff. Do you want to elaborate on that surname?
Well, yeah, the Whelans are actually a Dacia family, the leading Dacia
Oh,
family.
really?
They come from the O'Whelan. So O'Phelan and O'Whelan are the same sort of name. There is a small unrelated Anglicization of a similar name up in Donegal, but it's such a small that 99% of people would be more associated with the Dacia family. So yeah, the Whelans were the primary. Dacia family,
Mm,
and they are probably so they would be distantly related. I mean, very distantly, but distantly related to the Dalcash, to the
mm,
O'Briens, because the O'Briens were a Dacia tribe who feigned a Noctur heritage.
mm,
Um,
mm. Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating because I know anyone from class? I bet you someone from my comment section will be like, "Oh, I know you so and so was in your class, Philip," and blah blah blah. But I don't think I remember anyone that was a Whaling. Sorry if I skip any of your questions, lads. I'll just. Are you aware of this family here? I'm not sure how to pronounce that one.
If you're gonna ask, you're gonna have to ask in English,
Mm,
um, because I'm my school goes as my Irish is terrible, and also
yeah,
because
yes.
many of the Irish surnames would be anglicized into multiple names, and
Uh,
sometimes they're based on location as well. So you will have Harringtons. You know, most of the family have adopted Harrington up in the north of Connacht, but then they've adopted Higgins down in the south or something. So you've got and that can be through a multitude of reasons. So the Irish names are harder for me to disseminate rather than just having the English surname and then go, that's linked to this.
mm,
Um, Hi lads, have you much information on the connection between the McCarthy Moors and the Musgrave O'Riordans? Yeah, the O'Riordans were vassals of the McCarthy Moors, and they're both descended from the O'Noctors, so they would both be related, but
mm,
like distantly. But the O'Riordans are vassals of the McCarthy.
mm.
Hingerty, that's it. Harrington, Hingerty, Hingerton, West Cork, and South Kerry. That's actually the name of your. That's one of the anglicizations of the name that just came up.
Yeah, that's it. He just followed up there with that one,
All
so
right.
I took the backup one. The questions over on TikTok are more or less, do you know anything about the Collins? Collins are popping up a lot over on the old Tickety Talk Talk.
Collins has got many multiple origin points outside of Kerry and outside of Cork and in Cork. Most Collinses would sort of associate themselves with the Econal Gavra,
Mm,
but it can be anglicized from Collins, it can be anglicized from a multitude name, but most in Cork would associate themselves with either maybe Collins from Tipperary may have come down and become Collins over anglicization over time.
mm.
And then you've got like I said earlier, with the Econal Gabra, who are in Limerick, and obviously moved down with the Murphys to Cork in the
Ah,
14th century.
happy days. What was it called? Yeah, I fully agree there with Bobby. You're fueling me, Hall. You're definitely working hard for that bit of tip of money. I tell you that one, the old super subscribe and stuff. Like I just see Mihal. I'm just like, oh, can you name so and so of the McCarthy Moors? And he's just like, so yeah, he's working hard for his pennies today. I tell you that one. What was it called? We have, so the Irish have gone off to bed in Ireland, and I'm starting to see a few people popping up, just getting onto it now. So I'm assuming you guys are from the American side. Obviously, correct me, lads, if you're jumping on now. Do we have any Irish left? Have all of the Irish gone to bed? And is it mostly just Americans coming into the chat? So if you're coming over from America, definitely give us an old comment there. And also on top of that, if you're still coming over, because I just want to see what's going on over in Ireland and America. If you're still in Ireland and you're still awake, definitely leave me a comment as well, because I just want to see if we still have Irish people in the comment section and how many people are just waking up and jumping on from America. What was it called? This one is another one. Are you aware of this one, or is it another one
Yeah.
that just kind of?
No. Harrogans are in Cork. It normally comes back as like Horgans, something like that. Horgans with an O. But yeah, they're associated with where he stated there. Tipperary Limerick is the heartland of the Harrogans. That's where they're associated with. And then the branches are Horgan, Hamrahan is sometimes associated with them, but they're all associated with that area, Limerick, Tipperary. I'm not sure of the wider tribal group that they're associated with, because that area can be Dalcash, Conal Gavra, and Owenoctor. So I don't know the specific link, but I know that from that area. They are traditionally associated with that area.
Happy days. So we're mostly getting more Americans popping up here and Irish Americans as well. If you're Irish American, definitely leave us a comment as well with your family branches and stuff. And that's basically, especially from the Munster region, that's what we're trying to cover today. We're mostly focused on the southern Munster region. So if you're an Irish American, definitely leave us a comment as we say good, because it was grand when we first started because we had a lot of Irish on the comment section. So we were straight away getting, had plenty of questions and stuff to ask now. But as the Irish have gone off to bed, we hopefully will get more Irish Americans on. So if you are Irish American, leave us a comment of your family. In particular, try to give it a branch. Don't give us one of these big broad ones like the McCarthys. If you're related to the likes of the McCarthy Moores and stuff, definitely leave us an old comment. But if you don't know what Pacific branch you're a part of, definitely just leave us a comment anyway, and we'll try to figure something out. How many of these branches are there? Let's focus on the McCarthys in particular. Would you know how many different branches of the McCarthys are, Mihal? Or is that there's just way too many?
Again, there's just way too many. I mean, you have not only will you have the famous like lordship groups, you're going to have the ones that are put into ecclesiastical positions, minor nobility positions like keeper of the bees, just these positions that aren't well attested. Not only that, the McCarthys have an interesting thing that they found out through DNA testing, that will explain as well the problem with this, is that most McCarthys in Munster are related from the same individual, right? But they all adopted their surname at later dates. Different branches adopted them at different dates. So, and some of them may have been another name beforehand. So, and then over time, they decided to adopt McCarthy. So I'll use an example. Let's just say a random name like McDonough, because we know some McCarthys become McDonough. So we'll just do it back to front. So you've got McCarthy line, McCarthy Moore line, McCarthy, and alongside them, McCarthy's brother, McDonough, and then his cousin, McHayes. And then over time, in the 14th century, the McDonoughs become McCarthys, and over time, in the 15th century, the McHayes become McCarthys. And that happened over all the lines over, a 500, 600, 700, 800 year period. All these lines who were still descended in the same male paternal line, but they all adopted McCarthy at later dates. And that can be for a multitude of reasons. But mainly you would assume that it's to curry favor, knowing that they are from the same paternal group, from their origins, from their oral histories, from their literature. They will also be like wanting to maintain the land they already hold, especially as the McCarthys become dominant in their area, or start looking to squeeze out smaller families for land or for anything like that. That they adopt the surname McCarthy, knowing that they're already related to them anyway, to show that to basically lessen the likelihood that another McCarthy overlord, is going to try to take their land off them. If you look at the O'Sheas, as a great example, who are Corcadovna family, in the 14th century, they end up with no land in Kerry at all. They were kings of the Corcadovna. They owned all of Kerry at one stage, and they end up owning no land because of the O'Sullivans and the McCarthys and the Fitzmorrises. They just basically squeezed that family out, and the O'Sheas end up spending the 15th and 16th century in administration roles, stewards, etc.
Yeah. You wouldn't be aware of this family here. I'm assuming that's a family name, is it? The surname, or because I have not come across that family surname before, to be honest with you. And I'm from Mallow, like.
No, I'm sorry. That's is that just another problem we'll have is as well as spelling. A lot of families who are part of the diaspora have gone across, and their names have been our names have already been anglicized once, and they're being re-anglicized or Americanized or Australianized or whatever. Again in America, so you end up with these surnames that are have gone through several transitions to become what they are today. It's the same. This is why I kind of have an argument with people who get very finicky about pronunciation of a surname, especially Scottish surnames. Whenever you get a name like Dalzell or Menzies, those aren't the original names those aren't the original pronunciation of the name, but those are ways that I know that's how they're pronounced in my local area in Ulster. And then they've been re-anglicized again, and when they've gone to America. So these pronunciations change too, and obviously with pronunciation, spelling changes again because people will often spell through phonetics of their own language.
I just want to pick this one out of TikTok there and give some TikTok love. So I'll just actually copy and paste it over and catch me all off guard there and put that one. This one's actually originally from TikTok. So I'll just copy and paste that one over. Are you aware of this family branch over? Remember, guys, there's tons and tons and tons of family branches for poor Mihal to have to go through. So if Mihal, especially as you said there, with the evolution of these family names around the 19th century, when you have many, many families in the Munster region that we're looking at today having to immigrate over to America around the 19th century because of the Great Famine that hit when the British decided they weren't going to feed us anymore, forcing many, many Irish families to have to leave home and go to America. Are you aware of this family here, or are they another one that's kind of difficult to pin down?
Leans is a weird spelling, but if I was to guess, it's probably a variation of Leon, Lion, Lehane, O'Lehan, which again has I don't know where Ballyhake Castle is. I'm guessing it's Cork area, so that should be your knowledge. You should be pronouncing that
I did notice, that the Trilly, but I don't.
Well, it might be if the Lion Lehane family are associated with one branch for this talk anyway, the Munster branch are associated with Kerry and Limerick. So it should be if Ballyhaig Castle or Ballyhaig Castle is in the north of Connacht, north of Munster, on the border of Thomond, along the Shannon, then that's the family. So yeah, the Leon Lehane family, they're Kerry Limerick sort of branch.
Yeah, because I did notice that somebody had posted on early on from your TikTok side of it about the O'Learys and stuff, and I couldn't find the other one. Somebody else said they were O'Learys from the Mallow region. I was like, oh, I went to school with the O'Learys in the Mallow region, who were related to one of the main branches of the O'Learys. Do you know much about the O'Learys, Mihal?
Yeah, they're from the Cork and Lira. So the Cork and Lira are, if you click on that map again.
Yeah, just give us a second. There you go.
So you can see them at the bottom underneath the Barries. Yeah, so they are related to the Cork and Lira were the tribal group who ruled Munster before the O'Nocta. The O'Driscolls there, someone's asked about that, cover both those at the same time. The O'Driscolls or the O'Herdiscolls are, in Irish, are the original dominant family within that group. That they would be the senior line. The O'Learys are a cadet branch of that tribal group, the Cork and Lira, along with Coffey, McCormick, and Cronin. So these are all families that were part of the nobility or ruling family who were the dominant families within Munster politics before the rise of the O'Nocta in the 7th and 8th century. They sort of lose power in the 6th and 7th century, the Cork Lira.
Yeah, it's interesting. All right. And I just want to pop back over to the 19th century where we have the morphing of various names. It's like the 19th century when it came down to the Great Hunger in Ireland. We no longer call it the potato famine. Potato famine was a political way of trying to, what was it called? Or, most people these days call it the Great Hunger or something like that, because it was the problem is that although there was a blight to the potatoes, one of the biggest problems was that the British were taking the majority of the food that was naturally there. Because remember, potatoes is not natural food in Ireland. What was it? The likes of cattle, corn, wheat. These were all natural. Fish, for example. One of the biggest, and it was the same thing with my own family. I remember my grandmother used to bitch all the time about it, as well as anytime someone tried to go fishing around the Sligo area back around the 1870s and stuff, is that they would just be shot. The British would just shoot them anytime they would try to go fishing because it was all private fishing land, So many people were forced to have to leave the island of Ireland and go over to America. And this is one of my main points that I just want to bring up, is that this is when, names start to morph and change. I dated a girl for a few years who's from the Alabama region, and the spelling at the very end of it had morphed and changed because of the fact that when they got off the boat, the person who was registering them in would have spelt it that way. And that's how they ended up getting the spelling that they have today. So it's very interesting that when people are moving from Ireland over to America around the 19th century, that's where the majority of the spellings and the pronunciation does massively change, especially for people whose native language was originally Gaelic Irish, to suddenly have to speak English. And that's where the pronunciation, the way they would pronounce their name would suddenly change as well. Because I remember even over in London, there would, you'd come across people who would pronounce, I remember as well, when we were over in England, Mihal, you come across some people who pronounce their surnames completely different to how they were pronounced in Ireland as well. So even in England and America, you still have names branching off, different spellings starting to appear, different pronunciations and stuff. So these names still branching out, still evolving and stuff, which is quite exciting. But at the same time, it's kind of crazy how our own medieval history is constantly morphing and changing still.
Yeah, it's the same, like say, I had a good friend surnamed Dalzell. But that's a Scottish name. It's associated with Scotland, but it's not. I can't remember how they pronounce it in Scotland, but it's not how you pronounce it. Because the Z sound, or the Z in is a Gaelic symbol. It's often found the McCunniach clan became. Oh, what did they become? Macintosh. I think it's Macintosh. Might be. So it's that Z is a symbol that's sort of, and then that's obviously been pronounced in very very different ways. But even within the UK and Ireland, there can be different variations, and it just depends, I suppose, when your family got there, and how they decided to pronounce their own name themselves. Sometimes people would just pronounce it however sometimes they would pronounce it to sort of distance themselves from Irish and Scottish heritage. Maybe not destroy it completely, but just slightly take a step back from it for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah, like I don't cover that much with don't get me wrong, it is super important with the conclusion of medieval history in Ireland and everything, because it's kind of like, so what happened to all these medieval clans even today? Because after the famine and stuff, our kind of medieval identity is kind of smashed by the British. Like we really identify ourselves as Republicans and stuff today inside the island of Ireland, but we don't really bring out our proud clan history all that much, because after the famine, it really was smashed. And you could even turn around and say that our history was definitely smashed after the William Knight and Jacobite Wars, where the last of our proud clan history and our identity as a Tuat clan is, just constantly eradicated, smashed over and over again from all these wars that were kicking off around the William Knight and Jacobite Wars, which is very depressing, So today, trying to kind of, restore and keep hold of whatever our family history we have left is definitely very, very important. So I tend to focus more on the medieval history itself, because I think that's where you get the warm, fuzzy colors from, when we're still kind of having that kind of clan atmosphere of building tower houses, and we're inside our nice, snuggly clan castle and stuff. That's kind of, where I like to focus on a lot of the time, especially with this era.
No, sorry, I was just going to say, Stephen Franklin corrected me. It was Mackenzie and not McIntosh. I don't know why I just fired out a name and hoped it stuck. But yeah, McCunniach is the original broken translation of Mackenzie.
Yeah, that definitely. If we make any mistakes today, lads, definitely ping it in the comment section because right now we're kind of just blasting at poor Mihal there 1,000 miles an hour, and the poor lad isn't even based in Munster. He's up in Ulster, and I'm just like, okay, Mihal, go there, you go off, and I'm just there with a whip. Come on, faster, Mihal, faster.
Yeah,
So
I was like, oh, but I thought because we were meant to originally have Owen with us as well
yeah.
today, and he'd have really broke down some of the knowledge I have too.
Mm.
Um, it would have been a great dynamic where I wouldn't have just been under such a. Technically, it should have been. So last week it was more Philip and Owen's game. This week was meant to be mine and Owen's game. Because Owen's not here, he's left me with Philip like one of those people with a magnifying glass on an ant, just trying to
Yeah,
just.
Mihal, because I've been looking at some of the names there, and we're like, and some of them are actually quite difficult because I'm from Munster, I'm from Mallow, and some of these surnames, I'm like, I've never seen that surname before, and I like highlighted there on press show, and then suddenly Mihal's just, I can see Mihal, I'll highlight it here, like I'll pick this poor name here, right? Stephen, we're picking you out there. And I'll be like, okay, Mihal. And just as I'm saying it, I can see dread popping up on Mihal's face. And I'm like, well, I've already committed to this now, Mihal. What's he know, Mihal? And Mihal's just going like, well, that's somewhere in Munster, that's for sure. I don't think you're aware of this one. I can see already the dread popping up on Mihal.
No, Mackenzie's
Mackenzie's
a Scottish name. No, Mackenzie's a Scottish name. It's not a Munster name.
Oh, we don't have to cover it. All right, good luck, Stephen. Goodbye there. Come back next week when we're covering Scotland. Because we're mostly focused on the Munster region today. Because I'm popping over to TikTok as well. And TikTok is just a free-for-all. I don't think YouTube is too bad because at least with what was it so far? It's mostly just the branches of the McCarthy's. I was expecting more O'Briens and O'Sullivans, but it's mostly people have been asking about the Clan McCarthy and stuff. Especially Dennis. Dennis has been really opening up with the clans and stuff. But the problem with Dennis's branch is that McCarthy Bawn is that one of those tucked in ones that we, myself and poor Mihal, haven't really dug too much into because Dennis, we also know Dennis from over on my Patreon as well. So we're great buddies with Dennis, but Dennis would be asking me questions as well. And I'm like, I don't know that one. And it was mostly, I think Owen has been covering a good bit with Dennis as well. So we're slowly digging into McCarthy Bawn as well. But you haven't been into those chats because you're up in Ulster. The problem with a lot of that conversation as well is you're up in Ulster. So half the time you're not into, you're not involved with the conversations down in Munster. You're mostly pinned up with the conversations happening over in the Ulster side, Mihal, especially with over on TikTok. Because I see you popping up anytime TikTok is popping up, especially because you guys lately, Mihal, have been having conversations with the Normans, especially the likes of, isn't it the not the DeLacy's, but the other branch, the Corsies. That's it. You've been having a whole lot of chats with the Corsies up in Ulster and stuff, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, and my subscribers, my paying members have been begging me to cover more Munster families, and they were so chuffed to hear that you and Owen had managed to drag me down to the pits of Munster. To talk about Munster history, and I mean, I sometimes, the way I look at it is like, I read my kids bedtime stories, the Hungry Caterpillar, going on a bear hunt, and that's how I view Munster history. Every now and again I've got to read that book.
You're the one now that started off with, I love Munster. Brian Brew is my favorite. Ulster poo.
Yeah. So
I think you're doing a wee bit of crawling up to the Ulster people now, huh?
Well, actually, I'm doing the Maguires tomorrow. So
all right.
Yeah, so back to Ulster. I mean, they're an Erhiellan family, so it's still a bit, it's a bit, they're right on the border. But I do actually love the Maguires. The Maguires have a great history, although they were complete bar stewards during the 9 Years' War. They weren't very nice people.
Oh, right, right. Are they
Yeah.
another Gallo Glass branch? Are they, or are they just doing their own thing?
No, the Maguires are Fermanagh, ruled Fermanagh. They are a very powerful family in Ulster,
Mm,
and they ally themselves with the one branch, the main branch allies themselves with the O'Neills, but
mm,
another branch kind of goes on a headhunting spree and is kind of heavily involved in the small massacres. Say small, that's kind of unfair to say small, but there's a couple of massacres in which Hugh O'Neill clamps down on very heavy-handedly, quite rightly so. But the
mm.
damage is already done. The political damage is already done. The Maguires are at the centre of that. So Owen, you've got a question up from Caveman. Hi, Caveman.
Yeah, it seems to be the Foleys. They're asking a whole lot about the Foleys.
Yeah, the
You,
Foleys are another Dacia family.
yeah.
So yeah, the Waterford.
Oh, Waterford.
Yeah,
Fair
just
enough.
just that like the anything to um, you know, the anything to do with the Dacia. So Dacia were another family group before the rise of the O'Noctor. You're talking 6th, 7th century.
Mm,
They are rulers of large tracts of northern Munster, the border between Munster and what would be Meath.
mm,
They sort of and Dacia tribal groups are associated with many areas. They were well separated into multiple huge groups um, in uh, in Ireland. There is is that Big Red's quite right as well. There's the McSera group, McSera branch of the family who are unrelated. Normally they're anglicized to like Philly and Feely, but they're from Ulster. They're from like Sligo as well.
mm.
So they're Southern Ulster. So yeah, he's quite right. There is another branch that isn't related, but and then there's also the English branch of Foley. Foley is also an English name. So
Mm,
you
mm,
will
mm.
have English Foleys who appear during the plantations in Ireland. So it's a name, again, comes back to my very first point at the very start of this live. You get multiple unrelated families having the same surname.
I noticed over on TikTok as well, they're starting to pile up with the old Waterford questions. Technically speaking, now Waterford is on that border. It was purposely made when Prince John arrived in Ireland. He purposely turned Waterford into a border region between Leinster and Munster. So, should we be covering Waterford today? I'd let some of these ones slide today for sure. But technically speaking, it was purposely made as a buffer zone. Waterford was between the likes of the Lacey's and the Clares, against the likes of the Cogans and the Fitzstevens, and also the likes of the McCartys and the the McCartys and also the O'Briens. Because when Prince John arrived in Ireland in 1185, he didn't trust the Cogans and the Fitzstevens and the Fitzgeralds. And the reason for it is because those families were very much close to the Lacey's, you see. So when Prince John arrived, his biggest rival was Hugh de Lacy. But what happened? Prince John went to Dublin, and then suddenly Hugh de Lacy physically went into Dublin and then just personally bullied Prince John. And Prince John didn't do anything. It's very, very funny that Prince John talked and talked and talked and talked. And then Hugh de Lacy just physically walked right up to Prince John and then bullies him. He bullies him from the summer all the way over to Christmas. And then in the darkest of nights, on the most windiest nights, poor Prince John crying and sniffing to himself. And remember, this is evil Big John that had been sadistically bullying everybody and pulling people's beards and doing all kinds of horrible stuff until Hugh de Lacy put him back in line again. Poor Prince John had to, while he was crying and sniffing, jumped onto the old boat and started sailing across to get away from Hugh de Lacy because he had been bullying him so bad in Christmas and stuff, and he had to go back to his daddy, King Henry II of England, snuffing and crying and telling him how mean and how evil the Irish were to him when he was living over there. So Waterford, kind of it's in that kind of blur zone. I think technically speaking, though, Waterford is actually in Leinster, but it's kind of that blur area, isn't it?
Well, I suppose the same could be said about Thomond, because obviously
Yeah.
it was in part of Munster, it became part of Connacht for a while. It's so do you incorporate that sort of and that's not our boundary, and then we've
No,
got
no, no,
Meath,
no, 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 no. I'm
sorry.
going to correct you there, Michal. Now, as a Munster man, 100% Tormund belongs in Munster. I'm not going to,
I never said it doesn't belong
Waterford.
there. I said, but it ended up in Connacht. I never said
No, no, no.
it didn't
Right.
belong
When it
there.
comes down to Waterford, we could say, all right, goodbye, Waterford. Sorry for that now. Like, maybe we'll see you again. But no. Tolmond, Clare now, Tolmond, 100% is a part of Munster. There's no two ways about that one. I'll make sure to correct you on that one now. Talking about the O'Briens and stuff. Because we can elaborate a good bit more on the McCarthys and the O'Briens because of the fact of where did we leave the O'Briens last? We were just, after the Battle of Dice Ortiz. So we only just started talking about the O'Briens, what was it called, in this conversation. So we can actually elaborate that a wee bit more, because the O'Briens going into the late medieval period, especially when they take over Bronrati Castle from the MacMorras, they dominate the Shannon. I don't know if you could see it here. If we click on that there. Oh yeah, you can see the Shannon River there. So where the O'Briens are, just go south there, and you can see that river coming in, which is the Shannon River. The Bronrati Castle is on that, and they end up dominating the trade going in and out. And what happens is the O'Briens very, very, very quickly become very, very rich and wealthy. And maybe what was it called? Michal elaborates on the O'Briens going into the late medieval period. I can actually show you Bronrati Castle because it's absolutely magnificent. It's a gorgeous castle, and it really goes to highlight the wealth that the O'Briens had in the late medieval period, which, by the way, historians, academics are only now starting to really get into. What was it called? It wasn't the same economic golden age. They're starting to realize there's an economic golden age there, somewhat, but it's not the peak that we would have seen during the Viking age. There it is, absolutely gorgeous. And this is actually, it's a lot of people turn around and say the castles of Ireland were Norman castles. That's not the case at all. The majority of the castles in Ireland at the time are actually Gaelic castles that are built in the 15th century. And we can see there here with Bronrati Castle. Bronrati Castle here was constructed in the late medieval period by the, I think it's the MacMorras. The MacMorras had originally built it, and then the O'Briens had taken over. And you can actually see there, that's the River Shannon, right? And the O'Briens just dominate that castle. Using that castle, dominate the trade going up and down that river. And so the O'Briens very, very quickly become a very wealthy clan in Ireland at the time. Is there anything else you want to elaborate with on that one, Michal, as I quickly go over to TikTok and have a look to see what's going on there?
No, you kind of covered it, and because the O'Briens are so central in Thomond, Munster, Irish politics, really that they will appear in quite prominent positions all through, Irish history. I have a video, a short video. It's one of my first earlier ones about them. And it sort of covers some of that. I mean, they would have branches that would extend all the way to Ulster, Tullyoke, or Tullyhawk, which was ruled by the O'Hagans, was very briefly owned by two O'Brien brothers. They were accepted in by I think it was the Kennelowen, so what would become the O'Neills, and they were being used to be a buffer state from the rest of the O'Briens. So they were kind of hoping that having an O'Brien buffer state against other O'Briens would be a great way to keep that. We also have like the Mackie Breens, who are more of the rebellious group to the north of Thomond, and they are constantly at war with the Flahertys for the Aran Islands. They're more pirate related. They're more, kind of like, it's almost like the chiefs of the family. You have links, when they owned or sort of administrated or kind of overlord or claimed ownership of the Isle of Man. There's claim branches there too. So the O'Brien appear everywhere. But not only that, just something to remember though, if you are an O'Brien, doesn't mean that you are descended from Brian Boru. That Brian is an English surname too. The Brian came across with the Norman invasion and had descendants. So you could possibly be a later on person who took in the 19th century. We tried to re-Galicize our surnames, and many people put an O or mark in front of their surname, sometimes incorrectly, and that's could be possible for many O'Briens. Not all. Again, it's a very prominent surname. I'd say a good example would be of Dalcash stock in some way, but it's just something to bear in mind also.
For sure. I just want to elaborate on some of this. Just before I pop over to the Moat Bailey, because somebody brings up a thing I just want to point out, because I actually do support the castle argument, and I'll do that in a second. The O'Briens of Waterford. Do you know much about the O'Briens of Waterford before I pop over that question? And also, I apologize for anybody I've accidentally tripped over. I do apologize. I'm just getting bombarded by both TikTok side and the YouTube side. So I apologize for anyone I've accidentally tripped over. The O'Briens of Waterford, do you know much about them, Hall?
I actually believe it mentions it in my video briefly. It was I know there was a branch part in Waterford, but I can't, off the top of my head, I can't remember the history about it. It was about 4 years ago was the last time I touched on history, and when I did that video, and I haven't really gone back to it recently, and I didn't do that much research into them for this video because I knew we're McCarthy's, O'Sullivan's, Desmond's, Butlers would kind of dominate the picture rather than the O'Briens. So I would say go check it. It's only like an 8-minute video, and I'm pretty sure it mentions something. I apologize. It was one of my first videos, so terrible graphics and cons.
Oh yeah, that's grand. Let me back over to this one, and actually no, we can just go clear. But actually, I'll give you guys a Moat Bailey castle so you guys know more of what we're talking about there. Of course, one doesn't pop up. I'm actually specifically looking for an Irish Moat Bailey castle, but we're not going to have any luck today because I just want to elaborate on the O'Connor's Moat Bailey castle because we had recently covered it over on my Patreon last month, and I just want to elaborate on it again because I do believe Ireland had castles before, and it's the same with Caveman. Also believes that we had castles before the arrival of well, that's more stone, but it gives you a fair idea. A wooden one would be much better. I didn't, you see, when I was clicking at it, I just saw 1 second, there we go. We'll click this one. I couldn't find a Gaelic style now. I'm just doing a quick Google search to get those images up and going. So you think of it more round than more square. But here is a Moat Bailey castle, right? Now, at the time, right? So Moat Bailey castle, this is what the argument is, right? So the argument is that the O'Connors had been building these things before the arrival of the Normans onto the island of Ireland. And I definitely believe that the O'Connors were building these style of castles on the island of Ireland before the arrival of the Normans. Because if you look at this compared to, I'll quickly get a picture of the Rock of Cashel up, right? So they were building the likes of Cormac's Chapel. Actually, 1 second, I'll get Cormac's Chapel up. If you've ever seen the Rock of Cashel, right? This is the type of stuff that they were constructing, you know, at the time with German architects. There were German architects on the island of Ireland at the time that the likes of the McCarthy's were bringing in onto the island. And they were constructing stuff that was way more difficult than Moat Bailey castles. So when people argue, oh, there's no way that they were building Moat Bailey castles before the arrival of the Normans, should the Irish are too thick to be building anything like that? I did save the, oh, there it is, right? So this is the type of stuff that they were constructing at the time. 1 second there. There we go. So you can see there the Pacific stone there. That's Cormac's Chapel right there, and this kind of a yellowish kind of stone that you can see there, right? That's what they were constructing on the island at the time, and on that you could see a whole load of arches, right? And that arch technique was actually very, very difficult to make. And it's not just Cormac's Chapel; they're building was it cathedrals and churches and monastic settlements that are far more difficult at the time, far more difficult to construct than Moat and Bailey Castle. So that's your typical Moat and Bailey Castle. And all a Moat and Bailey Castle is a, what was it? If you look at the ring forts that we were already building, like we were already building fortifications on Ireland. So all they are is a raised version of the fortification that was already on the island at the time. So I definitely do agree that we were definitely, and I'm, if you haven't noticed, quite passionate about this subject, because we were building way more difficult things. Like this is your typical, well, the ruins of what we were building already, which is an Irish, this one in particular is referred to as a cashel, okay? Which is, it does, don't get me wrong, that's why the language can be quite difficult, because if you've clicked with that one, cashel, castle, yeah, you can see where the play of words come in, because cashel and castle are so similar. And so a stone ring fort would be called a cashel. And so eventually a stone ring fort would be applied to the likes of Moat and Bailey castles and stuff. So even for people who, you know, sitting down and trying to read the likes of the Annals and Ulster and stuff, it can be quite difficult to pin down, what was it called? A Moat and Bailey castle, especially when they're calling everything a cashel. Cashel. So you can see where the confusing, you know, it can be quite difficult. So I definitely do solidly believe that we were building castles before the arrival of the Normans, and that, like, even if you look at the Rock of Cashel, like Rock of Cashel is far more difficult to construct, and we had to bring in German architects onto the island. So I definitely do believe in that one. Just going back onto the subject, I just needed to have that little rant for myself, you know, especially when I seen it, and I think I thought it would give you some breathing space as well, Michal, before you get yourself back in there, because
well, you throw me back in now. You've had your your dip of toe in the water. Now you throw me back in.
Yeah. Because you've been going now for an hour and a half, and I've been just there with the whip going, "Go on, Michal, faster, Michal. Go on, give that surname in there, Michal. That's not a Munster name, Michal. It's a Waterford name. You fool, you fool."
It's all the same. It's not Ulster, so.
Oh, aye. People are also asking me there, did I watch Disney's Robin Hood? I did watch Disney's Robin Hood when I was a child, if you're asking away, which does tie into what we were just talking there about Prince John in Ireland and his dispute with the likes of the Cogans, the Fitzstevens, the McCarthys, the O'Briens, and Hugh de Lacy, of all men. I didn't realize that there were still de Lacys on the island of Ireland. You still have branches today, because what was it called? After the death of who? I can't remember who de Lacy's son was, but after he passed away, it was the Mortimers that took over up around the Meath area. And then after the Mortimers were wiped out, then you have the likes of the, who was it? The Yorkists that come over to the island of Ireland and pull us into the Wars of the Roses. So I didn't realize there was still de Lacys kicking about on the island. Do you know any de Lacys, Michal?
I know the surname, and I know many people with the surname de Lacy. You know, in Ireland, as far as I've never really sort of attribute, I don't know if Wolf, who is one of the people who studied a lot of Irish surnames, attributes it to any other origin apart from being a branch of the Lacys. But again, the de Lacys held land all over Ireland and England. So, you know, it's the same like people say about Butler. You know, well, there are Irish, unrelated Irish butlers, but most butlers are from the Nolan family, but they owned lands in Somerset, Devon, you know, so you're going to get these just multiple waves of families backwards and forwards. So I would associate them with the de Lacys, but I don't know enough of like any prominent branches that stood out after the medieval period, late medieval period. They weren't a prominent family by the early modern period.
Yeah, I'll just put up the spelling of the Rock of Cashel there, but look in particular to that Cashel part. That is the Irish word for castle as well, but it also gets applied to stone ring forts as well. So if your family had a stone ring fort, they were quite, fancy dancy for the early medieval period. But my rant is, just as we're going from the end of the Viking Age, so during the Viking Age, we're building this sort of fortification as the main fortification. We still have, wooden ring forts as well, but the main fortification during the end, especially coming to the end of the Viking Age, are these stone fortifications, which we refer to as cashel. But the problem is then, obviously, castle, you can see where people trip over themselves when it comes down to language, because as we go into the High Middle Ages and the very start of, the Crusaders and Knights being Ridra in Irish, but just as we start to get the Ridra, the Irish Knights and all that kind of stuff, that's where we start to build Motte and Bailey castles. But the thing is a lot of people believe that the Irish are a bit too thick to be building these kind of Motte and Bailey castles and stuff. So there's always an argument: did the Irish? Because the biggest problem is that we still haven't found proper archaeological evidence to support it. Because it's one thing to turn around and say, oh, well, we did or we didn't or whatever. But at the same time, although we have archaeological evidence, which is still standing today to show that we were building stuff that was far more difficult to build than Motte and Bailey castles. At the flip side, we still haven't found anything that supports the argument that we were building Motte and Bailey castles. And then from there, obviously, we evolved from Motte and Bailey castles into this sort of castle. And a lot of people will turn around and say, oh, well, the English or the Normans have built that. No. This is 100% a Gaelic castle. This was built by clans such as the it's MacMorras and the O'Briens and stuff. So this is a Gaelic castle. So the Irish were building castles and stuff. So, the whole belief that we were a bit too thick to be building anything like that, completely stupid and ignorant, in my opinion. We'll get back to we'll calm down and relax now. We'll get back to.
Well, I want to add Jim's point there. I do have a point to mention for Jim's coming out. So this will make Kat happy as well, one of my members. So it's both, but the Normans, when the Normans came in, so there's a site where the O'Sullivans are originally from, which is just south of Cashel, a place called Knockgraffan, which was a hillock of importance to the O'Sullivan clan, and that's where they're originally from before they were forced south. The Normans then came in and repurposed that hill for a Motte and Bailey and then eventually a tower house. So they would use whatever was in their sort of proximity, but by and large, the native group has already gained the dominant areas through years of warfare, trade routes being set up. You sort of learn the pathways. The families traders are going to go through, armies are going to go through, natural, just centuries and centuries. And then the Normans come in, are then naturally going to take over those areas. There's pre-existing fortified areas. Not only have you already got the masonry to hand, you because you're dismantling possibly some stone elements in the area, you already know it's a interconnected area, so it's both.
Thanks for that, Jim. And over in TikTok now, no, I will not be what was it called, elaborating on Downpatrick. That's your buddy there over on TikTok, Micheál. I'm just going to be mean to him.
Is it Dwayne? Is it Dwayne?
Yeah. I seen him elaborate. Don't get me wrong, he's not doing anything actually rude. It's just
no, he can. He could be. He's a great guy. He's a mutual minded. He's a great guy, and everyone who's on TikTok should go follow him if you want anything on the northeast of Ulster, history-wise.
I wouldn't mind. That is his field of expertise. So he's just being mean to us there. That's why I'm just like, get out of it, will ya? Because I'm mostly down in the Munster region. down in what was it called? I should know where I bloody live. Down in Mallow, Cashel, and Bramati, and also Blarney as well. And I was also doing tourism with Trevor McCarthy up in Kilmallock as well. So I've been, and obviously y'all as well with the old bus tours and stuff. So I'm mostly pinned up around there, those spots there. Don Patrick is his field of expertise. So,
well, it's funny because we actually only live about, I think, about like 8 miles away from each other, but there's a big lock between us. Yeah, he's no, it's definitely his area of expertise, and I would say anyone who's interested in St. Patrick, just northeast of Ulster history in general, he covers a wide variety. So please check him out. Dwayne on Fitzsimmons on TikTok. Well, and he has a glorious mustache as well. So
he does
history, actually. Go check out his mustache.
I forgot to say that now that you bring up what was it, St. Patrick? What was it? You wouldn't believe this. I'm actually going to put up the photo here. Do you know Fox News has been doing a TV series on St. Patrick? I seen this last night, the trailer for season 2, and I was like, no way. I have to actually sit down, see if I can get a hold of this now. I don't know if anybody in chat is aware of this, but Fox News is doing a whole series on St. Patrick, and they're on season 2 now of it. And I was like, no way. So I'm going to be catching up.
We did St. Patrick. Is it the real St. Patrick, or is it St. Patrick's St. Patrick, like his telling of himself?
Yeah. I to be honest with you, I haven't started watching it yet, but I seen the trailer of it last night on Fox News, and I was like, no way. Out of all the people on the whole planet to be covering St. Patrick or a TV show on him, what was it? Fox News is covering a show on him, and they're on. I don't know if they're covering all the saints of the world or something like that, but they're on. It said last night season 2 of St. Patrick, and I was like, no way! Out of all the people to be covering him, I don't know if Dwayne has been watching it because I'd be very interested to see what shorts Dwayne would make if he sits down and watch it, because that's definitely Dwayne's field of expertise. I'll be sitting down in
Jim.
Yeah, I've seen that as well. I'll highlight that one for Dwayne. But I'll see if I can hunt it down, and I'll give an old watch on to see if it's any good, and see if they're covering all the saints, or is it just St. Patrick as a whole? Because it just says Saints season 2, so I'm assuming maybe they're covering all the saints. Was it called? Yeah, it premieres season 2. And they have St. Patrick, and I'll definitely be looking at the clothing and stuff to see how bad the clothing is, because the clothing seems very, very bad. And I did living history for a few years, so I wouldn't be the greatest master at early medieval clothing, but I do know a good bit. So I'll be looking into the early medieval clothing for sure for that era. Any other surnames or anything you want to pick out there, Michal, as we start to push on?
I think I saw some.
Earlier, remember, the topic today, guys, is Munster Gaelic names in the late medieval period. That's what we got requested on. So any questions to do with the Munster region, the very south of Ireland during the late medieval period, definitely leave your comment below, and we'll go through it there.
I can't remember who wanted the Condrick Kendrick surname. But that's a Leinster surname. So we branch of the Kenshillig, so branch of the McMurrough. So we won't be going too much into them. Like, that's one thing I think Munster and Ulstermen can agree on. We don't like Leinstermen.
yeah, I was just seeing that as well, and thanked you over. The McMorras, at least they had what was it, Art McMorrow Covenant, who was the man who definitely pushed the Gaelic resurgence to the English, and even went as far as absolutely battering Richard II. Everyone always forgets that. They always have a tendency of completely deleting our medieval history with the arrival of the Normans onto Ireland. It's like the English invade in 1169. Okay, skip everything and skip to the very end of the 1916 and all that kind of stuff. Why did we do 1916? Oh, we had the potato famine, you know. They seem to forget there's a good chunk that we even actually beat the English in 1399 with Art MacMor Cavanagh up in the Wicklow Mountains, where we chop up and dissect Richard II. So there's still, the MacMorras still have their redeeming qualities. Any other questions there, guys? Most Irish Americans are Republican nowadays. Yeah, there's been a massive resurgence this year of Roman Catholic Republicans who are Irish Americans. There's definitely a massive rise there. We're starting to overwhelm the place, especially with the Irish Mexicans as well. Irish Mexican Catholics and Irish Americans are really starting to pick up. And of course, we have the link with the St. Patrick's Regiment again with the Mexicans against the the Texas regiments and stuff. So there's a whole connection between the American Mexicans and the Irish Americans with St. Patrick's Regiment. Definitely a regiment to be proud of. Let me see if there's any other stuff we need to elaborate on the old comment section. Here's your chance, lads. Give us old, family names, especially down in the Munster region. What I'll do actually is I'll bring back up the map again. I'm chasing after stuff, and Mihal's having a go at all that there.
There you go. There's one.
Oh, here we go.
We were.
I think we didn't cover. Did we cover your question earlier? I don't think we covered this question earlier because I think we missed one of them. Because earlier
I remember there was a couple of. I remember there was a couple of names, and this was one of them. But I could only remember the Kendrick name.
Yeah.
But yes, there was a branch from Munster. There's a branch from like Offaly. There's a branch from. I can't remember where, but there's a branch from your neck of the woods, Carberry, Mallow, that sort of end of the world as well. So they are a Munster name. They're associated with a few places. Where else? No, but definitely Mallow and Carberry and Offaly are the two main areas I can think of. But yeah, so it's a.
I noticed that one, Jim, especially this week where we had people saying F America, Irish Americans saying F America this week because of the way politics has gone and stuff. We won't delve too much into it. But it's so strange to even see Americans and Irish Americans being, F this and F that to run their government and stuff. But we won't elaborate it because I don't want us to get into trouble. I want us to mostly focus on the late medieval period. But yeah, Jim, I definitely seen that this week, to be honest with you. What was it called? Jim, what
Philip, let's not open any files on that. Yeah, let's just stay away from
Okay.
Stay all the way away.
What was it called? Where do I want to go? I'm trying to run away from modern politics now. But yeah, I will give the old nod to that. But we'll try to keep to late medieval Ireland. Happy stuff, nice and fuzzy. The reason why it's so fuzzy, though, the late medieval period, and why we love it so much is because modern historians, especially this year, are trying to study the trade links, especially in this region of Munster and even up with the O'Donnells and stuff. They're trying to find the trade links between the clans in Spain because they noticed that in the late medieval period, the era we're talking about today, when the clans are building these sort of castles and stuff, where is all the money coming from? And we're starting to know that there's some form of economic golden age happening, where we have a whole load of trade happening into Spain, and then even as far as Spain, Portugal, and then going up around into Italy, especially the likes of Florence and stuff. And then from there, loads of money starting to come into places like Baraty Castle here into Blarney, and especially into Galway. Galway starts to make a good whole load of money, especially with the likes of the Burkes and stuff. And it's only something that historians are now starting to really dive into this year. So hopefully with the history of, clans and dynasties in the late medieval period and stuff, we're starting to see much more history starting to develop and stuff. And that was just before the arrival of the English, who come in and ruin everything on us. All the fun ruined. Just elaborating, Murphys of Munster are connected to. I definitely would
Yeah.
agree with that one.
Yeah, so that's the McMurray lines, obviously, the Murphys, but you also have, excuse me, you also have the Ivina group who are related to the O'Kellys. You have the Muskerry who are related to the O'Connell Gabra. You also have the Kenaloan Murphys as well. And then you have Murphys that are descended from the surname Murray and other McMurrays, etc., etc. So, but there's definitely 1, 2, 3, 4 main Murphys that are all unrelated, um, descended from those wider groups. So yeah, that group, yeah, there's obviously a blending in the Waterford area where you would get the Leinster branch and the Munster branch sort of intermarrying. That's the thing with cities, so especially during like the Industrial Revolution or any big trading city, you're going to get families from multiple areas migrating in, and then you'll have Murphys who are not related, just years of living next to each other, intermarrying, blah, 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 blah. Before you know it, you don't really know which Murphy you were. 100 years down the line, you don't know which Murphy you were anymore.
Yeah, I was just about to say that because I had a bit of a bug error there. I don't know if you slightly tripped over on your side, lads, but yeah, somebody asked about the O'Briens of Limerick City, and yeah, I assume it was the same thing there because I've heard that the O'Briens of Limerick City were a merchant family. I don't know if you know anything about that, Michal, but I assume it's the same thing as well because I must be related to the O'Briens of Limerick City as well because I'm actually. My dad's side is actually from Limerick, so we're probably related as well. But I'm assuming most cities are very mixed.
Well, to be fair, the MacArthurs or the Arthur family of Limerick are, I believe, are Dalcassian, so they could be from the O'Briens. I know they're a native Gaelic family. I'm pretty sure it's Dalcassian. I may be slightly incorrect, but regardless, there are families obviously living in these. Um, uh, there are Irish families adopting English names and being, associated with it. Murphy certainly might be a Scottish order. Yes, again, coming from we have the thing is Gaelic and Irish are are they're from the same origin, Old Irish, and they don't actually separate until the 14th century. By then, you've got surnames have been around for near 400 years, especially in Ireland or in parts of Ireland, should I say. So you're going to have surnames that have multiple, including Scotland, that are traditionally seen as Irish. Now, obviously, when they differentiate, when they start to separate in the 14th century, you get names like Murray. But Murray becomes interchangeable. You have Irish Murrays and Scottish Murrays, but sometimes they became Murphys, sometimes they stayed as Murrays. It's all these names that are very similar, come from the same eponym, are interchangeable and have been through history. You have Irish Campbells, you have Irish Armstrongs who aren't related to the Scottish Campbells.
This question here, I just want to tackle as well, and Michal can definitely, what was it called, expand on this one. But the book to read on this one is, what was it called, Fergus Kelly's Early Irish Law, and in it goes over laws to avoid incest happening because you could imagine it would easily happen, especially in the early medieval period, because you have constant people mixing around with marriage alliances, adoption, fosterage, that people would lose track of who they were related to and who they weren't related to. But in fact, I don't think it ever happened, to be honest with you, in the medieval Ireland, because of the fact that people kept account. They knew exactly who was related to who and who should be marrying who. So there were laws in place to prevent incest. And I don't know any example of anyone breaking those laws to commit incest the way they had done on the, what was it called, in Britain and also over in Europe as well, because you find incest laws being broken when, certain cousins and sisters and brothers are, diddling each other behind closed doors, or if there's money involved, because I know when it comes down to incest in Ireland, I do know examples actually from the Cork region, and just, I don't actually don't care if I get into trouble with this family because I know this family and we banter all the time. But we do have incest happening around the 1800s when it comes down to control land. So you do have brothers and cousins and stuff. Sorry, not brothers. We do have cousins and stuff marrying each other to control the land itself. So if anyone brings up incest in Ireland, just like in England, it does happen when people are trying to control land. It's not like in America, because you also have obviously stories in America as well of incest happening as well, but it's more kind of brothers and sisters getting up to no good behind closed doors. But I don't know any example of incest happening in medieval Ireland, unless Mihal does, but it's mostly kept to Brehon law. Brehon law does control incest in Ireland.
Not in this time period. Obviously, we know of Bronze Age and early sort of finds and stuff like that. But that's a phenomenon that's happening all over Europe. And the world actually. But as for medieval Ireland, no. Mainly because landholding was held, it was different to England. The feudal system kind of kept it within a single nucleus family, whereas Gaelic sort of Irish law kept it on a wider. So if I married your daughter, I'm not inheriting anything from your daughter land-wise. I never am. If she's my only child, the land will probably be taken by the clan chief, we'll say Chief O'Tarnist, who will then redistribute it on the advice of my uncles or brothers or whatever. There's a lot of committee sort of going on. Obviously, it always comes down to the Tánaiste or the Rí or the king to what he finally decides. But you're not inheriting land through a marriage per se. What you're inheriting is kinship. So you're inheriting allies for battle, for trade, for blah, 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 blah. So it doesn't work the same way. So to incest, what would be the point in me marrying into a family I'm already rich? I'm marrying my sons and daughters out to as many families as I can. So if I'm murdered, killed, or my son's murdered, killed, the blood feud that entails is an army, or the trading, or the all that. So the trading with cattle, cattle raiding, raising forces. So it's not, it doesn't work the same way. And like you say, it's only really with the introduced in the 19th, 18th, 19th century and during the famine or the Great Hunger that we see these incest, then becomes attributed to, especially in the sort of 17th, 18th, 19th century, with poverty, lack of education, stuff like that, which is found in areas like Ireland, parts of America, and parts of England. So it's not really a thing though in medieval Ireland.
Yeah, I think, you see, I have come across that question a few times. People assume that there must be a level of incest happening in Ireland because of the way that the king groups, the clans are all mixed around and stuff. But the thing is, you need to keep in mind is that records are kept. Even families themselves, they should know exactly, I am so-and-so, my father was so-and-so, his father was so-and-so. But also the poets and the Brehon judges all know who this person is, who so-and-so is, who so-and-so is. And you can still see the same today in Ireland today. When I'm in Mallow, I am Hayes of Limerick, and it's a case of, who's your dad? Who's your grandfather? So even today, in places where I'm from, it's still, I am Philip, Hayes of Limerick. His father was so-and-so. I know his father was with so-and-so. So we still talk
we get it. We still we're the Doyles of Bound Bridge. We're part of the Doyles of Bound Bridge. But when I moved into an area, there was another Doyle family up.
Did we lose Mihal?
And they were like, are you really? Oh, yeah. Is my signal dropping?
It could be my one or your one, but I dipped there anyway for a slight bit. But go on anyway.
Yeah, they were just like, "Are you related to so you're related to the Doors?" And I was like, "No, we're not related at all. They're another family altogether." It's just really funny to move into a village and people be like, "Are you related?"
Just quickly pop around there and see. People asking, when did the English arrive? You get little fragments of the English starting to appear in 1169, especially in 1172, with the Anglo-Norman invasion with Henry II. And then as you don't really get any major invasions, because we do have a major invasion that happens around 1370 to around 1399, but Art MacMurrough beats back that English invasion. And then around what was it called, the 17th century, you have the invasion from Cromwell. So you do have 17th century in the early modern period, so away from the medieval period. That's where you start to get fresh invasions coming onto the island of Ireland, especially with the Tudor invasion and stuff. So a lot of these major English invasions start to happen going into the early modern period. A lot of people assume that the English invade in the Norman period and that's it, our history is gone, and it's not. You still have clan history all the way up to the William Knight and Jacobite Wars, and the Irish aren't smashed until 1803. So Ireland doesn't become a part of the Union of the United Kingdom until after the Irish Rebellion of 1798. So after the Irish Rebellion of 1798, that's when we're completely smashed. And that's where we become the Union in 1803. But we still have an Irish Rebellion in 1803 as well. So even at the last moment, Robert Emmet was still trying to resist. But we do start to really become smashed in 1798 when we have the Duke Edward Fitzgerald killed and shot, and we have the likes of Wolfe Tone and stuff killed as well. Who, by the way, you have to always highlight the fact that they were Protestant, so it's not entirely a case of Catholic versus Protestant all the time. It is actually quite complicated. Another person saying they're from Mallow as well. How's my fellow Mallow people? Any other families that we need to pick out? We're starting to finish up now, but why is it that we're starting to finish up and we suddenly start to boom with numbers? I don't know if you want to stay around, Micheál, and start grinding for the old money or not. I'll see what your comments think. I think it's actually your traffic. Your traffic suddenly boomed in. Is that? Yeah, that's yours. You're on a streak. Do you want to stay on, Micheál, and claim all that delicious ad revenue, or do you want to go off to sleep?
No, I can stay on for a wee bit longer.
Oh, that's grand. We'll stick around, because what was it called? Micheál just had a traffic of algorithm. So for all the Irish Americans that have suddenly jumped on, or anyone who's still staying up, because I noticed a few people from Mallow suddenly popping up in the comment section. So how's everyone in Mallow doing? So there seems to be still Irish people staying awake this late. But I think most of the traffic seems to be Irish Americans. So anyone that popped on from Micheál's side, how are you all teeping? How are you all doing? Tonight,
Kat, you're going to be you might be inundated in the as my moderator on YouTube. You might be inundated here, so get your boxing gloves on.
All right. But tonight we're covering what was it called? The late medieval Munster. I should pop back over to my picture here. I have. There you go. Right. So tonight the main focus is the actual southern part of Ireland. I know Micheál likes to call all of Ireland south that isn't part of the the Ulster region, but no. This is actually the southern area. This is south of Ireland, the actual south of Ireland today. The rest of it is the Republic of Ireland, okay? So just to get that clear, right? The rest of it is the Republic of Ireland. This is the actual south of Ireland, where I am from. And on top of that, today, we are covering late medieval clans of Munster. So if you have any relation to late medieval Ireland in the Munster region where I'm from, definitely comment below. And on top of that as well, what was it called? Just any clans as well. So you don't even need to be related to them. Just, chuck it out there, Micheál. Well, I'll get the whip out and I'll start whipping Micheál. And since his ad revenue is jumping up right now, we can really get him working up a sweat. So I think some people wanted us to further elaborate on the fighting between the O'Briens and the Fitzgeralds. If we zoom in there, we can actually see the territory. And you see, bang on, the Desmond Fitzgerald's team. Kennel Owen, Jesus Christ. You Ulster, man. Get out of it, will ya? Jeez, I'll get the whip and I'll whip you guys out of the comment section. It's Micheál, I blame you for bringing all these lads in here, no?
You mean
causing trouble in my chat.
Bringing quality in.
Oh, stop. Yeah, get out of it. Anyway, regardless, you can see straight away why there's so much fighting between Desmond Fitzgerald, who at this point have become more Irish than the Irish themselves. Originally, a Norman family that had immigrated to Wales, and then from Wales, they were requested from Dermot MacMurrough to go over as mercenaries, and then ended up getting caught up with this entire war that became the Norman invasion of Ireland. And by the end of it, ended up settled down up around my area, because if you look at the very tail of it, that's where Mallow would have been. And so I would have been on the old Fitzgerald side against the O'Briens, believe it or not, during that period. And the old Fitzgeralds would have been flying the old St. Patrick's Satire flag. I could probably actually find, give us a second there, I could probably show you lads a photo of what the, what's it called, the type of flag that the McCarthy's would have been flying at the time. If I look over to my photos to do with the 15th century, because I was showing everybody yesterday the old McCarthy. Actually, no, I don't. I did have it original, lads. Let me look for that there, and I'll leave Micheál elaborate a wee bit on the Fitzgeralds. Is there anything else I need to chuck in there to do with the Fitzgeralds, Micheál? Because I do know they spend a lot of time fighting the O'Briens, but they don't always be fighting the O'Briens. Like, if you go
Butlers,
into...
the Butlers are their primary rivals, because the way I would sort of describe this period in history that we're covering, is that you've got two Fitzgerald branches for a start. You've got the Desmond branch of Munster, who we're covering. You've got the Kildare branch, they're related, obviously, but they've kind of separated it into two main families that are often on opposing ends of the politics, to each other. The Kildare line sort of leans more towards England. The Desmond line leans more towards the Gaelic Irish, although it's a one foot in, one foot out kind of situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Butlers are by this time the Norman what we'd class as Norman families, the Burkes, the Butlers, the Fitzgeralds, and a few scatterings of Gaelic Irish families are really the Premier League or the NFL or of the politics in Ireland. And they're the ones battering each other or using smaller families as proxy wars against each other. But yeah, the Fitzgeralds, they have O'Briens, they have the McCarthys, but they're often claiming overlordship of the McCarthys. The McCarthys are sometimes submitting to them, acknowledging it, and then getting enough strength to denounce that and claim their own independence. A bit like the Fitzgeralds are doing to England. So there's this constant, but the Butlers are the biggest rivals of the Fitzgeralds, pretty much from the offset, mainly because of just their proximity. The Burkes sort of dip in. The Burkes are crazy; they'll fight anyone.
No. I just want to apologize to everyone there. I couldn't find the photos. I actually yesterday, if you go back to my live stream yesterday, I was covering the and I have the photos on the other live stream as well, because this thing I'm using a multi-stream. I paid for a multi-stream using our Patreon money, and I went off and I put up all the photos and stuff. So if you come back to me in an hour or so, or actually we might just continue this. We'll see how what was it called? If we can keep Micheál up all night, because right now he's doing actually quite good over on his YouTube right now. So we might keep him up and keep whipping every piece of penny out of him. But what's it called? Boom. There was some good comments.
Yeah, Williams is the thing, because we've got a bit of a debate going here. So I'll weigh in.
On.
Right. So Williams, and whenever you see a name saying like Williams, David, anything like that you associate with a specific country, it doesn't necessarily mean that name is from that country. It just means that it can mean individuals from another country, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, have adopted the name. So saying like Williams as well, or Norman. So therefore, if I am William, I'm from Norman descent. It isn't always true. Someone has correctly pointed out that the McWilliams in Ireland were Burkes primarily. We've got McWilliams from Scotland too, who are another prominent family from the Scottish surnames are a bit weird, but the main branch is associated with Moray.
I'll let you continue there, and I'll just grab a drink of water. Just give us a second there.
Yeah. We've got the from Moray, so they will have fed into the Ulster line from the plantations. Obviously, the names in its etymology comes from Ab Gwilym, which is the Welsh argument that individual's putting forward. So it doesn't, just because the name originated in Wales, many families adopted that surname. Like I say, Burkes, multiple branches of the Burkes, Scottish families, Ulster families, all took it on. So just because you have read that this name was created in this country doesn't mean that if you hold that name, suddenly you are descended from that country.
Sorry, I put on my mic. I turned it off while I went to grab myself a drink of water. Somebody else as well was asking an interesting one on the what was it called? The Collins clan, which I found very interesting because obviously the Collins are super famous because Michael Collins himself had obviously saved Ireland during the Irish War of Independence and stuff. But I don't know much about the Collins during the medieval era. Do you know much about them, Michal?
Yeah, so we sort of covered briefly, but they're part of the Epigenti tribal group of Limerick, the main branch. Actually the branch? Have I glitched? No, sorry. So as I was saying, the branch that Michael Collins is from the Epigenti, which is the Econal Gabra, which are from Limerick, who migrated down into Cork in the 14th century. But there are Collins families. It's also an Anglicization of Cullen, and there are multiple Cullen families. Tipperary is quite a famous line. There's some in Ulster, there's some in Connacht. So, Collins, you see a lot of information about the Epigenti in early manuscript 10th, 11th century, but they end up getting smashed by the O'Briens, the Fitzgeralds, and the McCarthys. Not McCarthys, Fitzmaurices. So they're kind of like dispersed, and that's why the Collins sort of are seen very early on in Irish history, and then there's this massive gap, and then suddenly in the 19th century, 20th century, you have an individual who's related to that line, and I believe they trace that line as well. They mention it in their sort of, we're related to this family. So that happens to a lot of families. There's only so many believe it or not, there's not that many families recorded. When you, in the grand scheme of how many surnames there are, how many origin points for each surname, there aren't that many surnames recorded.
Just popping over to the old TikTok there as well. They're asking for the O'Learys again. Let me switch back over to drop that down, pop that up again. Do you have the O'Learys? Oh yeah, we did. Pop that over. At the very bottom.
The Cork O'Leary family. They're related to the O'Driscolls.
Yeah, the O'Learys are quite exciting because I do have a buddy of mine who is mad into the O'Learys and stuff because he is an O'Leary himself. He's related to one of the main O'Leary clans and stuff. But they have a very big clan gathering every single year. So the O'Learys are still today, a very, very active clan. So the O'Learys are still very, very popular even today because I don't think they're ever like completely wiped out of it. And the O'Leary clan. So if you're not aware of this, definitely go and look it up and stuff. I should actually get in contact with the O'Leary clan and see if we can get them on to do a talk or anything. But yeah, the O'Leary clan, they're still massively active today. So definitely go online and see if you can see if you're a member of the O'Learys, definitely see if you can join their clan gathering every single year in Ireland, up around the Munster region. because I am aware they have very big clan gatherings every year, so they're still fully active today. Mihal has just gone out for 2 minutes, so I'll just entertain you lads for a wee bit. Let me see, because I'm actually up in the Mallow region, so I'm definitely with the old Fitzgeralds against the O'Briens. But my friend, what was it called, Desmond O'Leary, was mad because obviously he's a part of the O'Learys and stuff, but he's never gone to any of the clan gatherings, which is funny because his family was definitely one of the major families during the medieval period. In fact, under the Fitzgeralds, because his branch was under the Fitzgeralds and used to actually work doing guard duty and stuff in Mallow Castle. So very, very active family for sure. I'll just pop over to the old tickety talk talk. Any families and stuff you guys want me to cover, definitely start pouring in. Which you were saying there that your family, this is over on TikTok, by the way, your family is from Tipperary. Did I miss? I think you were saying earlier that you were part of the McSweeney clan. Is that the McSweeneys of Tipperary? Because I do know that the McSweeneys come down during the late medieval period as Gallowglass to the Fitzgeralds. So is your family from the McSweeneys? Is it? Any other families as well? We're mostly focusing on Munster today. The Kennedys. Oh, that's a very, very famous name. Ask Mihal when he gets back.
I'm back.
Oh, you're back there. The Kennedys, aren't they a branch off of the Dalcash? I'm sure they're a branch off of Dalcash, aren't they? Oh, just the one of them. How many branches are we looking at here? Dozens again, is it?
No, it's this one. I think there's 2 Irish and 1 Scottish associated, like well attested. What McKennedys of Fermanagh is an unrelated family, but the O'Kennedys are from northern Tipperary, or the other side of the Shannon, basically. And they're a branch of the Dalcashians. They take their name from Kennetig, Brian's father. Hang on, what was it? And ladies. Oh, you must have said something about gents or fellas. You're forgetting the ladies. You've been a bit sexist, Philip. You're going to
well, you see, this is what causes a lot of arguments, because in Mallow we just say, "Hey guys," and we don't believe in gender. You see, we're very progressive in Mallow compared to the rest of you guys. So no, everybody's a guy in Mallow, huh? You know, what of it? You know, don't judge me.
Jim says surnames haven't been around for that long. Yes and no. Surnames have been around for, well, it depends how long you want to say long. I mean, depending on which argument you stand for. So the O'Clearys are said to have the oldest surname in Irish history, but the O'Cannons could make a claim for it if we can find out. But unfortunately, we don't have a manuscript that proves it. But the first person that uses the surname O'Cannon may or may not be either the grandson. If he's not the grandson of Cannon, then he's not using a surname. He's just but if he is the grandson of Cannon, then he's the first one to hold a surname. So, but the manuscript isn't clear on the relationship. But O'Cleary is the 916 AD, I believe it's when it's written in the annals. Now, not everyone took a surname at that point. Most surnames, especially associated with like Munster or Meath, most of surnames seem to be attributed around the times of Brian Boru after the Battle of Clontarf, not Brian Boru, Brian's grandsons, and they all seem to follow suit with Murtagh of taking a. So when Murtagh takes his surname as O'Brien, obviously to legitimize his connection to Brian Boru and just sort of state, he was a high king, therefore I'm a high king, whatever, all the political maneuvers that come with that, and their book that they write. A lot of families do the same thing, start saying, well, yeah, my grandfather fought in that battle too, so we are the O'Sheas, we are,
he just confirmed there he is talking about the Tipperary Kennedys. His family moved over during I'm assuming the Irish Civil War is what you're talking about. They immigrated during the Irish Civil War, but his branch is the Tipperary Kennedys. So I'm assuming they are related to the Dalcash.
Yes. Tipperary ones are from the Dalcash, that's correct. Or they claim it. You know, again, I have to always like preempt that it's a claim. DNA will only ever prove it otherwise. But yeah, so surnames are old, but they're not. Not everyone took a surname at the same time. You know, like I say, we were taking surnames right up until standardization of English language in the 19th century. So, you know, you're looking at they're nearly 1,000 years old, but it's a gradual process of people taking them over centuries. So.
Yeah. The McSweeneys. Someone else wants me to continue elaborating on the McSweeneys, and obviously Mihal can correct me.
I love
on
the
this
McSweeneys.
One, but the McSweeneys of Munster, a good majority of them come over with just coming to the late 100 Years' War at the start of the 15th century. A lot of them are brought down as mercenaries to the Fitzgeralds and the O'Briens, and it's there that they have the kind of reorganization of the Irish military in Ireland in the late 100 Years' War, because at the time the Butlers and the Fitzgeralds in the Irish Parliament are at war with Talbot, which it's just a funny area, because technically speaking, in a way, they are at war with England, but not really, because as Butler continuously highlights in the Irish Parliament, they're not technically speaking at war with the English king, because the English king isn't really with it right now. So Talbot is, leading the English military and stuff. And from there, an argument and a war kicks off between Talbot's running the English military. So in a way, the English military is at war with the Irish Parliament, led by Seamus, the White Earl Butler, and James, the usurper Fitzgerald. Those two people are running the Irish Parliament. And so because James, the usurper Fitzgerald, is paranoid the English are going to invade Ireland, what he does is he basically builds up, trying to reorganize his military and modernize it. So he brings in coin and levy. And as a part of that, he brings in tons of McSweeneys down to Munster. And he reorganizes them from war bands, very, very well organized war bands, to medieval companies. So he very much reorganizes the entire military at the time. And, thank God he did it, because for the next 100 years, he's just going to be fighting again and again and again, going from the 100 Years' War with the Butler-Talbot feud, then going into the fighting in the late stages of the 100 Years' War against Butlers, because the Butlers then switch over and join the English. And then we go into the Wars of the Roses, where we have straight out fighting between the Fitzgeralds and Butlers during the Wars of the Roses in Ireland, as the two of them fight for control of the Irish Parliament with the title Lord Deputy of Ireland, which then flows into the Gaelic clan wars just as we go into the Tudor conquest of Ireland. So very good timing at the very start of the 15th century to reorganize the Irish military, switching from the old war bands into the the Gaelic mercenary companies and stuff, and reorganizing them and having the McSweeneys really take control of that. It's also the period where you see a lot of McSweeney castles popping up left, right, and center. Anything I left out there, Mihal, or anything you'd love to elaborate on when it comes down to the McSweeneys in Munster?
Not from a Munster, not a Munster stand from a not from a Munster standpoint. Obviously, we'll just preface it that they are originally from Ulster and originally from Scotland, but we won't go too far into that. We'll save that for maybe a night when we talk about Ulster.
Because I was about to rant and rave, because the McSweeneys are always branded as a Scandinavian family, when in fact they're actually Gaelic, aren't they?
Well, according to their traditional narrative, they state the descent from Amrahan, who is a Kenaloan prince who goes to Scotland, and then they move. Obviously, they side against Robert the Bruce during the Scottish Wars of Independence, they lose their castle during the war. They go then to the English and sort of say, look, we'll side with you if you let us, if we can have our castle back. King Edward goes, take your castle back and you can have it. They fail in their siege, so they flee to Donegal. Well, most of them flee to Donegal. Some of the other branches obviously stay. But and then they sort of turn up at Donegal and go, hey, O'Donnell's, we're cousins, distant cousins. Let's let's sort out a deal. We'll work for you soldiers, and they do, and they become the second most powerful family in Donegal for right up until the early modern period.
Ah, nice. When it comes down to this question here, maybe Michal can elaborate on it as well, but the fighting, I know, you see, I've been looking tons into the, what was it called? The Wars of the Roses in Ireland. When it comes down to the private, the private wars? They're called private wars. You have like a main war itself where it's two major realms fighting each other, or two major clans fighting each other. But then you have private wars. And what private wars are is when two minor family, clans start to fight amongst each other and stuff. And when it comes down to the private wars, which, by the way, you also see in England, that's like the Wars of the Roses, that starts off with private wars. It never starts off with the main civil war. So a lot of people assume during the medieval period that, the good English people, why can't Ireland be more like England? Look at England. That, they're all good and centralized. Oh, no. The Wars of the Roses itself started off with private wars inside of England. In fact, every single time people bring up examples of, why can't Ireland be more like England? And I'm looking at England and I'm like, they're having civil wars as well. In fact, during the Norman invasion of Ireland, what was it called? England has 3 major civil wars, So I think it's very funny when people are telling Ireland, be good there. Ireland, stop having civil wars. Why can't you be centralized like England? But no, it was who was it again? Over in England now, up in the road, one of the very first civil wars that started the Wars of the Roses was fought between, I think it was the Nevilles and who's the other family? And they were fighting over a road between England and Scotland because the road obviously had control of the trade going up and down. So even the Wars of the Roses starts off as private wars. It never goes into the meat of it. But when it comes down to the Wars of the Roses in Ireland, I know at that stage, the McCarthys and the McCarthys, the O'Briens and the Fitzgeralds had allied themselves together against the Butlers. But I'm not sure which way, because I'm assuming you would have had branches of Murphys on both sides, both the Butler side and the Fitzgerald side.
Yeah, every conflict you'll have families on both sides, pretty much, unless the family is like primarily their lands are held primarily in the central lands held by an overlord. So if there's any branches, even slightly in a Fitzgerald area or a Butler area, you're going to have them on both sides.
Just not this.
There's not.
Yeah,
no, I was just gonna say, there's not this like idea that like we're just there. So you'll have families that are going, yeah, okay, we need to follow what our Ree or Tarnist or whatever is, our ruler is saying. And then he's going to make the decision along the lines of the Butler or the Fitzgerald. But you're also going to have rival branches who are looking to use this opportunity, siding with the enemy to hopefully go, right, if we side against my brother and he dies in battle or he gets captured or whatever, I want his lands whenever you win. If you get how Game of Thrones like politics is in medieval Europe.
Oh, for sure. Taoiseach, were you trying to say Taoiseach there? Because you guys barely get to practice saying Taoiseach. It's grand in...
No, I said Tarnished.
Tarnished, the prince. Yeah, that's grand. No, because I just want to highlight to everybody that you're up in the north, so you guys barely get to say Taoiseach half of the time, especially with the weird politics happening up there and everything towards the Irish language. Very strange stuff going on. But regardless, yeah, it's grand for myself because I get to say Taoiseach all the time, dealing with Micheál and stuff. Which at the time meant head of the clan. These days it means prime minister. It's used for prime minister. But back in the late medieval period, the period we're dealing with right now, you have Taoiseach, which means head of the clan, and then you have Taoiseach, which was heir to the clan at the time. So yeah. Poor Micheál doesn't get to practice as much Irish because of all the weird politics that's going on compared to myself.
My Irish is terrible. Especially
my Irish is terrible as well. I'm calling it here. This is what was it, the whatever, the pan calling the kettle black, or wherever the bloody hell you want to call it.
No.
I'm very bad as well.
It's the same with calling the Macintoshes the Mackenzies. You know, it happens. It happens.
We're getting some brilliant questions over on TikTok. Most of them, though, are mostly set up around your place of Ulster. You sure you bring in a lot of Ulster men, don't you, over on the old Tickety Talk? Or is it YouTube is mostly dominated by Munster men, maybe, and Ulster is probably, what was it? TikTok is probably dominated by Ulster men.
Don't give us TikTok.
You're getting TikTok. The men of Munster dominated YouTube. Where am I going now? I had a few good ones there, and I actually forgot which ones I was going to pull out. Anyone, families, you guys want us to cover, especially in Munster, definitely comment below. Herman of Munster. Let me see 1 second if I can get that spelling out, because the problem is, well, we were covering this. This keeps jumping around the place. I'm trying to copy and paste this over, and it keeps did it again. Right. Ooh, because I want Micheál to see the spelling and see if he recognizes it. I'm assuming you're Irish American, because the problem is, as we were saying before, with the Great Hunger and stuff. Do you recognize that spelling there, Herman? I think I might know some Hermans. Isn't Herman though Scottish originally? I think it could be either English or Scottish. I'm not sure if it's Irish originally. Do you know anything about the Hermans, Micheál? It's kind of gone out of your sphere.
Yeah, again, it's one of those names. I mean, I thought it was going to be Palatine or something, you know, from the Germans that came across to Munster in the 17th century. But I'm pretty sure, though, there is an anglicization of the name, and I can't remember it for the life of me. I will look into that. Whoever asked that, I will look into that.
Yeah. The O'Rourke's mostly dominate up in the Breffni region, so they're mostly up fighting between Ulster and Connacht. I don't know if there is. What's funny is I actually do know. While myself and Micheál were doing military service and stuff, we do know a Patrick O'Rourke who was from Munster. He was from my part. He was from Cork. So I do know O'Rourke's in modern day that are from. Do you know any medieval branches of O'Rourke?
Yep.
Oh, you do? Go on.
So, yeah. So a branch, we don't know how they got there, but we know what happened. So what probably happened is a rival branch for the chieftainship of, you know, the Taoiseach. Civil wars happening amongst the clan, and a branch has made their way down to Munster. I think it's around the 14th, 15th century. And what happens is that, so they flee, they possibly fled to Munster you know, because they've lost the war. But they end up becoming Keeper of the Bees, which is actually quite a noble title for the McCarthys. And they're based in Cork. So they start off a branch. So they're a noble family in Cork. They're still related to the Breffni line, but there are Rourkes in Cork who descend from them. And like I say, there's medieval tracts about them and inheriting this noble gift, basically being given a noble title by the McCarthys, because they obviously recognize prince that happens all over Europe. You'd have branches of families going off and being, you know, the Godwinsons, taken to Norway and Ireland and stuff like that. So it's quite a normal procedure to happen. But yeah, it happens between the O'Rourke's and the McCarthy's.
I'm not sure if this branch is over in Munster as well. We haven't covered them yet, actually, have we? I don't think we've covered them yet.
No, we haven't covered them, but they are. There is a branch. Mahoney's are from very south east of Cork primarily. There's quite a few Mahoney. I think there's 2 separate branches of Mahoney's. It comes from. Thing is, it comes from Mahon or Mahmagon. And there's so then you have them related to, it could be a variation of McMahon, it can be a variation of a number of names, so you do get quite a few. But I do believe the Mahonies of the southeast are a Cork Lugder family, so related to, or Cork O'Leary family, so related to the O'Learys. But I'm pretty sure there's a similar family further north, but I can't remember who they're related to. But again, McMahons, who are a Dalcash family, can anglicize, or not anglicize, but change their name to Mahoney.
And back onto the old conversation about the Cogans again over on YouTube. And let me just pop over to what's it called? Tickety Talk, and see if there's any we can really pull out. We're mostly, guys, over on TikTok, we're mostly focused on clans in Munster region today. So today we're mostly focused on Munster, especially the late medieval period. So if there's anyone, so when it comes down, because some people are chucking in the Irish words, old Irish words, and we're not focused on early medieval Ireland. We're mostly focused on late medieval Ireland today, guys. So late medieval Gaelic clans, because you guys are all being fancy-dancy with your old Irish there. And it's like, well, to be honest with you guys, we don't, specialize. We're not linguistics, okay? So just to highlight that, myself and Michal, we're definitely not linguistics. So just keep that in mind today as we're going through the history of clans in the Munster region. What was it called? The Cogans, who were Norman grants of the territory, had become weakened, and but the Cogans are another family that become more Irish than the Irish themselves, isn't it, Michal? They, when it comes down to the Wars of the Roses and stuff, I could imagine them taking the side of the Desmond Fitzgeralds, another family that became more Irish than the Irish themselves.
There were. I mean, even the Butlers had branches that became Irish. So it's not unheard of. Although Cogan, I do believe there's like a bit of an argument whether there's an Irish branch of the Cogans as well, who are unrelated, but or whether it's just a surname that's been Gaelicized over time and was originally Norman's been Gaelicized. But yeah, they certainly were very busy in the south on both sides. If you read the annals, the Cogans or the Cogans, depending on who was writing at the time, were constantly involved in all the shenanigans of Marcher Lords, and that's the problem as well. They are Marcher Lords, so they're right on the peripheries of royal power. So they kind of rule how they wish, and it just depends on the son who sort of appears, how they'll be acting for that generation.
I had to bloody look that up. Because I kept getting mixed up if the Cogans had taken land on East or West Cork. It was West Cork, just west of Cork City is the territory's land, because they end up having a siege. I don't have the photos with me today. I actually put it on my Patreon this week, because that's what I'm trying to remember from, because I actually covered the Cogans this week, and I'll be covering the Cogans again on Patreon. But my notes and stuff are on a different, PowerPoint presentation and stuff. But yeah, the Cogans take west of Cork City in around 1177, and they also hold on to it all the way up to 1185 with the arrival of Prince John on the island, which is all stuff I'm going to be covering this week over my Patreon. So definitely head over there if you're interested in classes to do with Irish medieval history. I cover every weekend. Any other questions you want to take out there, Michal, and elaborate on as I quickly scan through, because we have a good few questions popping up again in the comment section. I like this one. Anything on the Barrys from Cork? The Barrys were actually, a lot of them are actually in my class, and they've got a whole load of, I'm not sure about that spelling there, but there's a ton of history up around we have Mallow, but just North Mallow. Bloody hell, that name is just out. I think it's just called, we have Barry's Castle just north of Mallow. And the village it's a part of now, it's literally out of my head. Everybody will bloody tease me, but you have to remember, I actually haven't been in Mallow for about 10 years. So that's why it's slightly out of my bloody head right now. But regardless, anything you want to elaborate there on, Michal, so I can put you on the spot.
So there's both Irish and Welsh and Norman for all those names. So the Cadigans are Welsh or Irish, depending on the branch. Cadigans a Welsh name. I believe it's a village in Wales. But then you also have the Irish Cadigans who are related to the O'Driscolls. So they're like part of the Corca part of that group. So, and the Welsh Cadigans moved into the similar area as the Irish ones. So finding out which one you are would be very hard to do. The same thing as we spoke about earlier happened with the Barrys. They moved into the O'Bara family. Again, the Barrys, the Norman family, who came across with Strongbow, took land from the Barrys in Cork, or the O'Bara. And they then anglicised the name to Barry. So again, only DNA will prove which line you come from because the names are found in the same area. There is a Barry branch in Donegal as well, unrelated. And I believe as well it can also be English, like as in it came across later from England and Scotland with the plantations.
Over on TikTok, someone keeps spamming this one in. I'm not sure. I'm assuming that it's another surname, but I've never come across that surname before. And not to be rude or anything, but I'm not sure what branch this is from, and I've never come across it before.
I mean, Wilde. The only association I can put is the family of Oscar Wilde, and yeah. So different spelling, but spelling's never. We ignore spelling whenever you come to the origin of surname, as we've discussed earlier, which is an English family. So as for Bittery, I mean, it could be. I'm looking at etymology. It could be similar to McVitie, which is an Ulster surname and a Scottish surname. So not Munster.
Yeah, just popping over to Jim O'Neill's comment there to give you a bit of breathing space again, Michal. Munster, where I am from, there's parts of it, especially up around the west
while you do
side.
that, I'm going to get a drink.
Yeah, grab a drink there, and I'll let you give it, because we've been bombarding Michal. Michal specialises on the name of various king groups and clans in Ireland. So we've been getting the whip out and whipping Michal as much as possible to get the information out of him today. But just popping over to Jim O'Neill's questionnaire, because I'm actually from Mallow. And if you look over to the map there, I would personally say, and obviously the comment section is up to correct me, but I'd say the majority of it is definitely more west side of Munster. Is more kind of hillish, mountainish kind of areas. I wouldn't say mountain. Like if you're thinking Japan or anything like that, no, it's not like Japan. Very hillish. Very. For the rest of the world, I definitely would categorize it as more hillish. But if you're talking up where I live, up in north of Munster, what was it called? Mallow, Tipperary, all those spots. It's referred to as the Golden Vale. You'd get more kind of flat land like you'd see here. So I definitely would put more the Kerry area and stuff like that, to be honest with you. But when it comes down to what was it called? Mallow, Tipperary area, I'd give it more flat land because it's perfect farming land up where I'm living and stuff. And plenty of fighting and stuff between the Fitzgeralds and Butlers. Like where I live, you'd get way more proper, when you think conventional style warfare and stuff where you've got two lines battling each other. That would definitely be where I live, is where you'd see more of those, classic conventional Hollywood battles. Well, I wouldn't say Hollywood battles per se, because they're still holding, their formations with their spears and stuff as they slowly poke each other to death and stuff. But that's where you see that kind of fighting stuff compared to Kerry. Kerry now, you'd see more of that kind of Gaelic ambushing fighting. You'd see a lot more cattle raiders. So definitely where I live, you'd see more the term in Irish, it's referred to as Ridra. Ridra in Irish, that means knight. So you'd see more knights up where I live. Even like the Knight of Kerry or the Green Knight, or, different forms of knights and stuff. You'd see more of that terminology and usage up where I live and stuff, compared to a lot more of the hillish, Kerry areas and stuff, especially ones that are dominated by the McCartys. Those territories and stuff is more kind of cattle raiders, and you'd see more hobbler horses where, the horsemen come over and throw javelins and stuff. Very, very different terrain and stuff. So Munster, definitely hillish, and also very, you get your parts that's very flat landed and stuff. I'll pop into the comment section there and see if there's any other. Sometimes what I do with your comments there is I kind of just flick them on like that, because his information, isn't it, Mihal, is always absolutely brilliant as well when he elaborates on a lot of the stuff. I'll quickly just pop over there and see if there's any other comments. Do you want to elaborate on his comment, or do you want me to fly over to the other comments there?
Kevin's information is always bang on.
He should be the one running the channel sometimes, because some of his comments are absolutely ace, bang on. If he's ever interested jumping on, pop on and give me a message there on Instagram. I have no problems linking you up as well. Some of the people that ask to come on, I'm just like, sometimes I'm like, maybe not. But if he ever wanted to pop onto the channel as well, he's more than welcome to, because God, he's absolutely brilliant when it comes down to the information to do with Irish history. Absolutely brilliant fella.
There is a question about Hughes.
Can I find it there? Are you talking about this one? Or am I on the wrong?
Yeah, well, he's done another. Yeah, so
if I can find his other one. Well, you waffle there. I'll just see if I can find his other one.
No, it might be the same one. It's the same question anyway. It doesn't matter. You might have just spammed it. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
That's grand.
So Hughes is, I believe it's Welsh, and it's etymology. Again, this is going back to the William comment, but so Ap Hugh is a Welsh name, but it's obviously adopted by people over time. So the Hughes surname in Ireland has multiple variations, and they're all interchangeable, whether it be Hayes or he, or Hugh, Muck Hugh, just plain old Hughes. And there's up to, I think I counted before when I was doing research, up to between 12, I think maybe 12 different branches of the family. But the O'Hee family, who sometimes anglicized the name to Hughes, there's a branch in Tuatha in northwest Cork, who are a part of the Corkalukta. So there is a Cork family, but the rest are primarily found in sort of North Connacht, North Leinster, and Ulster, and a bit of the Midlands. That's the only branch that's in.
I just want to apologize to anyone's families we've skipped over by accident, because you guys are getting in there. I just want to apologize for anyone I've missed so far, because there's some very juicy questions in there for the families and stuff. I'll just copy this over, and hopefully Mihal can elaborate on this one still further, because I'm pretty sure they're connected to the McCartys down in the Cork region and stuff. So you can definitely elaborate on that a little bit more there, Mihal, as we slowly make our way through a lot of these comments and stuff. Also on top of that as well, guys, if you're spamming in your questions, just to bring them back up again for myself and Mihal to see it, just make sure you change the way you ask it slightly, because I don't want the algorithm to kick you out for spamming, because the algorithm hates spamming. So if you're asking the question again, guys, because I didn't see it the first time, and I do apologize for that, just make sure you change it slightly so you're not done for spamming. Okay, guys? The McCartys that immigrated over to the United States, I'm assuming they're connected to the main branches that are in the Munster region, Mihal.
There's up to the thing is there's actually more than one branch of McCarthy's. I think there's up to 5 who aren't related. They're unrelated. So
oh, really?
Yes, yeah. It comes from 2 eponyms. So which I do have a video on my TikTok. I'm a YouTube short. But yeah, it comes from Karthik and what's the other one? Karahag, I think it is. So yeah, there's up to 5. Well, I think it's 5, but actually it could be 4, but 2 may be related, but we don't know the connection. Anyway, regardless. So everyone thinks because I'm a McCarthy, I must be from the McCarthys of Desmond, when actually there's a Leinster branch, there's a Connacht branch, and I can't remember if it's a Midlands or an Ulster branch. But anyway, so yeah, just because you're a McCarthy doesn't mean you're from the famous McCarthys. But so knowing when any of the famous lines migrated across, by the time the Americas were discovered, by the time we'd start to, Europeans had started to colonize America, the clan system had been eradicated. So there's actually no way of knowing who, if any. I mean, obviously there were still noble lines that had been incorporated into the British imperial system, but and some of them may have moved across and taken land, or some of their sons or something like that. But by this stage, it's not a clan system. It's outside of my area of study. You're sort of looking in the 18th century, early 18th century, 1700s is when they start to go across en masse.
Definitely. I know some people as well. What I'm doing now, I noticed there is a slight technical problem. So what I'm actually doing, well, I'm not sure if I don't think it's a technical problem on our side for sure. I just think it's the way that they must have updated the system on our side, but we're not getting the TikTok questions over. So what I am actually doing, I'm still paying attention. I haven't forgot you guys. You have to remember, myself and Mihal are dealing with multiple streams because I have a multi-stream up. So what I'm doing is I'm clicking over to TikTok and I'm copying the pasting questions over. So don't panic. We are getting through the questions and stuff. But if you see YouTube questions being highlighted the way they are, it's because I can easily just click on it. And then for the TikTok questions, what I'm doing is I'm just copying and pasting it over. So don't panic. We are slowly but surely trying to make our way through it. And of course, if we've completely accidentally skipped over your question and stuff, just make sure to put it in again, but make sure you change the way you ask it a little bit over, or add an I or a dot or whatever in there, so you're not done for spamming, okay, guys? And we will eventually try to get over to it. But of course, we're dealing with a good few questions in here. And we still want to kind of, get into the question and stuff and elaborate on it. We don't want to be going bang, 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 bang. We kind of want to still get into a nice, juicy conversation as well at the same time. So just bear with us there. And obviously, any question we don't cover today, well, you can always subscribe and we eventually will get over it as well. Mihal always goes through live streams and stuff, because you're also live during the week as well, Mihal, aren't you?
Yeah, well, Wednesdays and Thursdays are cert, because obviously Wednesdays with you guys and Thursdays are my members only stream, so paying members. But I have very cheap subscriptions, so and I do stream every Thursday on a topic you decide. So this week it's the Maguires, but sometimes on a Tuesday. I haven't really been doing it very recently. Kids and schoolwork and homework and stuff, but I will probably start bringing them back again very soon. And it's more of this kind of live anyway, where I would just reel off the names rapid fire. I can normally only do it for a couple of hours because my brain starts to fry.
Yeah.
The reason I've actually
right now.
Yeah. Well, luckily I've managed to do it a bit longer tonight because you've been giving me a bit of a break every now and again.
Yeah, it's handy, all right. Like, what was it called?
See, Murray seems surprised. He's like, I can't believe Michael's still away.
I've got the whip. What I did is I have under the table, but what you guys don't know is I actually have an electric zapper under the table, which is just zapping him every once in a while to get him going. Like, just pressing the button and he gets going again. Like, he starts to fade off. Like, you'd be talking about the Murphys and stuff, and then you're like, and like, go on, get back up again, keep going. I need to make that money. Come on, yeah.
Jokes on you, I'm starting to enjoy it.
It's fun. It's fun zapping you out of it. You know, every once in a while you're just like, and then the Murphys went off, and then the Murphys. What was it called? Back over. Never mind the Murphys. We'll run over to. I ran with the O'Sheas. The O'Sheas are quite active in Munster as well, aren't they, Micheál?
Kerry.
Kerry.
Yeah.
They're Kerry. I always thought they were Cork.
No, the O'Sheas are Kerry. They're part of the Cork Divna tribal group, but they disappear thanks to a couple of Munster families, the O'Sullivans and McCarthys, and just become administrators by the 15th century. They don't own a single piece of land in Kerry, so they go from kings to not owning a single piece of land within a few centuries. Although they still remain sort of semi-prominent. And then you've got the Shees in Tipperary, who are said to be descended from the O'Sheas, but actually more likely a Norman surname or a Norman branch.
Yeah, the zapper under the table is quite handy, Kate. Anytime he's just like kind of phasing down, he back up again, like because what time is it over in Ireland right now?
What 5-1?
5-1, nice. More zapping there. We need to get that money in there. We'll keep him up all night. No, we'll keep you up for a little bit more, and then we'll send you off to your bed, Micheál. So we'll make our fair due, because our algorithm is quite good right now, so we kind of want to milk that a wee bit before we send you off to bed. But you were saying, all right, that you do private classes as well, covering the clans and stuff as well, private live streams. How do I join your private live stream, Micheál? If right now I need to find your private live stream and sign in and stuff, how do I go about that?
Good question. So I think on TikTok it's called a super fan instead of a membership, and I think it's a button at the top, and then there's 3 tiers, but all tiers get primarily get the same thing. But it lists all the things that differentiate, and then YouTube it's a memberships. I think again as a button on the bottom. Well, it depends on what device. I normally watch YouTube on my mobile, so I don't know where it looks on the PC, but you'll see a memberships button again. Excuse me. Again, the multiple. I do believe I have a cheaper option on YouTube though. So if you're just looking for a really cheap option, I would recommend YouTube, and it's purely because YouTube takes less the money than TikTok, so I was able to bring it down quite substantially. I do have just a 99p one, which it says it doesn't get you access to the memberships lives, but it does. So 99p you can, and if you're not sure what my channel is, it's written underneath my name there, Clans and Dynasties. Every Thursday, normally about 11 o'clock. Well, it could be any. I meant to do it like about 10:30, but I don't turn up till 11, so just say 11 o'clock.
Yeah. If I think you can read that easier. Yeah, there we go. So if I highlight like that, you can see the spelling for Clans and Dynasties. And Micheál is over on what was it called? TikTok, and he's over on YouTube as well. He's also over on Instagram, but he's rarely on Instagram, so he's missing out on all the banter over on Instagram for the time being, and it's getting quite good. Yeah. The thing is, though, I think TikTok is better for this kind of family talk and stuff, and YouTube's all right, but I think Instagram is more focused on the kind of stuff that I'm into, which is, the more scalar battles and the campaigns and the clothing and what life was like during the medieval period, where if you're more into, the timeline and the dates and the bigger battles, I would be more of your cup of tea. So if you're into that sort of stuff when it comes down to Irish medieval history, I cover classes on Irish medieval history every Sunday, and that's mostly focused over on Patreon. So if you want to sign up there, go over to my Patreon. It is Irish Medieval History on Patreon. The link is on YouTube. So if you click onto my main YouTube page, you can pop in there and sign up. If you just want to support the channel, just chuck in whatever money. But I do classes for about 20 quid a month. And this week we're covering Prince John in Ireland, which is quite exciting because we're covering the likes of sieges. We're covering the infighting between the various Norman families, which are now starting to become the Hiberno Normans and stuff. So very, very exciting time to definitely jump on and join my channel. And absolutely, if you're into the likes of clans and families and stuff as well, just pop over to Mihal's channel. But actually, funny enough, the number one way you can definitely support my channel right now is actually just to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Literally on this little, like right now, my Instagram is popping, and weirdly enough, my TikTok is, ticking away. But it's mostly my Instagram is really, really booming right now. I'm slowly getting up to my first 10K, but I'm actually about to pop into 30K over on Irish medieval history. But just as I was literally just starting to go over the corner of that 30K over on YouTube, it started to slow down. I was like, geez, because I started to pop all right with this short to do with who are the Anglo-Irish. Which at the time, the Fitzgeralds would go into the whole category of who are the Anglo-Irish because of the fact that the Fitzgerald family are living between both the Gaelic Irish world and, at this point, living about, about 300 years on the island of Ireland. You'd think at that point you'd be considered English, except for the fact that the Fitzgeralds are still heavily married into and evolved with English politics as well. So they kind of morphed from kind of like a Norman family into a Welsh family, and then morphed again into a kind of Hiberno-Norman family. And then instead of morphing into like an Irish family, they ended up living between both the English world and the Gaelic world. So they get referred to as an Anglo-Irish family because the fact that they themselves, day-to-day life is very, very Irish. But then they continuously go to the English court and then also marry, English women as well, which is sort of funny because we also have the likes of Artmac Comora Cavanagh, which is a very much a Gaelic family, but they also marry English women as well. So it's not just, Anglo-Irish people marrying English women. You do have Gaelic as well who are marrying, English women. And the term Anglo-Irish, especially in the southeast of the island of Ireland, is quite funny at the time because you do have, as we were saying last week, Michal, the likes of the Fitzpatricks, who are also a Gaelic family, but they're very kind of Anglo-Irish, aren't they, as well, the Fitzpatricks, Michal?
Yeah, later on, they're late to the party. It depends. again, there's two origin stories for the family. One's a Norman family. I subscribe to the Gaelic Irish origin story, but again, genetics will say. But yeah, the McGillipatricks are from Ossory or Urshiga, and they rule it along with like their Seps, the Buchanan. The Butlers come in, sort of end up taking over that whole area pretty much. But they still remain a prominent family. But I believe the myth of turning into Fitzpatrick is during the surrender and regrants of the Tudor period.
I thought they were kind of blurring into Fitzpatrick's with the arrival of the Normans in around 1170. But that does make sense that they don't really blur into becoming Fitzpatrick's until the surrender and regrant to the Tudor conquest, because I suppose there's no like proper need to become more kind of Anglo-Irish during the medieval period itself, because of the fact that the Butlers know who they are, the Burkes know who they are, the the Cogans, the Fitzstevens, they all know who the Gillipatricks are and have a very good relationship with the Gillipatricks because of the fact that the Gillipatricks kind of hold on to Kilkenny in a very kind of a sort of honourable way. And then straight away, there's proper negotiations between the Gillipatricks and the Normans. So there's a lot of respect between the Normans and the Gillipatricks. And I suppose that's also why they're able to blur into becoming the Fitzpatricks later on, as we go into the Tudor conquest of Ireland, and able to, keep their head down while everyone else is getting wiped out of it. Over on TikTok, I know noticed
on,
that
we
there's
got
a
a, we
ma-
got it.
yeah.
Someone donated.
Oh yeah,
Just thank them.
is it this one here? Is it?
Yeah, Tanya. I don't know which one it is because it doesn't just differentiate. But to whoever you gifted, thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, means the world for us. And also as well, guys, don't be shy to ask it. If you do donate money to the stream and stuff, do not be shy to ask a question in there as well, so we guys can elaborate on what you're looking for and stuff as well. Obviously, I don't want to be promoting favoritism, but at the same time, I am promoting favoritism because, like, if we see questions from people from our Patreon and stuff, we do try to answer that one. And on top of it as well, if someone's giving gift subs, there's a level of politeness that we also have to cover as well. So I hate to turn around and say, oh, favoritism is the way to go, but at the same time, we do have to give an old thank you and stuff as well. So
I will say though, on my Tuesday lives, that doesn't guarantee you. My attitude on my Tuesday lives is education's free, so even if you can't afford it, you still get your question answered. Yeah. But it is still greatly appreciated. Yeah. And also TikTok, whenever you gift, does actually put your comment quite to the top anyway, so naturally it happens anyway. So yeah. What else? What else was I going to say there? Oh, someone was asking, Jim's asking, what's 20 quid in dollars? $26, 10p. I just Googled there.
Oh, this one causes a lot of arguments as well. Any troop with the family coat of arms was given from James II. Oh, that one's kind of slightly out of my field of expertise. Do you have anything on that one, Mihal? Because I know that's way out of my expertise because it's outside of the medieval period. You don't know anything about that, Mihal, do you? Because I know when it comes down to coat of arms, God, does it start a lot of argument, debates between us.
Are we still talking about the Fitzpatricks, are we?
Oh, sorry, no. Somebody donated money to yourself there, and they were asking if there was any truth with the family coat of arms given to James II, and I think that's over on your side.
I don't know what coat of arms. Most coats of arms are very modern. You're looking within the last 100 years. There's only a handful that are, and I mean, this is coming from a Gaelic family standpoint, not from a Norman family, because obviously theirs are a lot older. But there's very few families that actually have like medieval origins. So the Kavanaghs are one of the very few that have a link to a medieval coat of arms. But again, it comes from a seal. And we can see the seal of the O'Connors as well, which is sort of reminiscent of William the Conqueror's seal of St. George. So it is, even though it's several centuries after. So I do have, but I will say actually, I do have what I consider a very good video on should Irish clans have coats of arms. And that goes into the history of coats of arms and names some of the older coats of arms that exist. The Red Hand of Ulster, again, is a coat of arms adopted by the O'Neills in the 14th, 15th century. They take it off the Corsies, who then take it off the Crustna, who then possibly have taken it from an earlier mythology. So, apparently James granted me in the coat of arms after the Battle of the Boyne. Okay, so again, the problem is we have with that is the coat of arms is like most of the coats of arms. It's not it's given after the clan system has fallen apart. The clan system has already been dead 82 years by that stage. I don't know of Meehan. There was a really good university used to have a load of mentions of soldiers who fought at the Battle of the Boyne. But it seems to be down at the minute, or it's been down for a couple of months. Whether they've taken it down, I don't know. I think I want to say Aberdeen. Anyway, there's a lot of myths like that. I wouldn't. I would say it's unlikely, but I can't say for sure. It's slightly outside my area of expertise. I'm literally 80 years earlier.
Yeah. I'm
But I
the exact
will,
same.
when I do a video on the Mehans, I will find out.
Yeah. The Battle of Boyne. I should do more research and study into the Battle of Boyne because it's really where a lot of these clans start to burn up and die out and stuff, especially going into the Williamite and Jacobite wars. And it's still like, you see, this is what's very funny about the term medieval is we just assume, we always try to give it an end point. So some people turn around and bring the end point of Ireland's medieval history around 450. Some people then bring it up to the end of the Wars of the Roses in Ireland. And then some people I myself would bring it up to 1603. But no one ever just wakes up and says, okay, so this is the end of the whole clan system or everything. No. You still see, like, the McCartys are still a full-on clan going up to the Williamite and Jacobite wars. A lot, even the O'Briens and stuff, the O'Neills. When it comes down to the Irish Confederacy, in the what was it called, the Cromwellian Wars in both Britain and Ireland, you still see a lot of the same clans popping up, still, part of the clan system and stuff. Even as far as the Williamite Wars and stuff, there's never a point where it just suddenly ends. Even after the what was it called, the British kicked out of the country and stuff, you still have families out in the west of Ireland and stuff still behaving the same way and stuff, obviously more modernized and stuff, but still very much like, the feeling of the clan, feeling of the family and stuff in Ireland. So there's never an end point where people are like, okay, so this is the end of the medieval period. Let's all stop behaving like clans and stuff and start behaving like a republic. There's never just a poof, it blurs, cycles. It's not until like today, all the mad stuff that's happening in Ireland right now is when the government is slow, and the Irish government itself is slowly trying to, get rid of a lot of this clan stuff so they can start treating us in a very modern way, which modern politics we won't get into. But on that note, let's see if there's any other questions there we can bring us away from the conversation itself. I see a few of them on the likes of the MacLeods and stuff. Today, our main focus is mostly on the Munster region. I don't know. I know the McSweeneys make their way down to Munster, but I don't know if any MacLeods make their way down to the southern part of Ireland and Munster. Micheál, you don't know any MacLeods that make their way down to Munster, are you?
There's no prominent people that I'm aware of now. Just because they were a Gael, these island people of Irish, Scottish, and Norse descent, doesn't mean. So there were a lot of families involved in being Galaglass, but most of them were seasonal fighters. So they were coming across in war bands, hired, and then going back to their families afterwards with all their loot and their payment. It's now the main families that we know of who became Galaglass, like the McSheehys, the McSweeneys, all these names are just literally right in my head, and I can't see them all. Which isn't normally like me, but it's getting quite late now. The reason they stand out more is because they're given land for their patronage, for their services, and then they use that land, they settle that land, they start building tower houses, building training schools for more future Galaglass. And then obviously because they settle Ireland and they start bringing in Irish people to be recruited into their Galaglass units and training them up, because that's the thing. People think that although I'm not 100% sure if these people took on the McSheehy surnames. I'm not. I don't think that's actually recorded anywhere. My thoughts are that they do, because to be associated with the McSweeneys. But Sean Duffy states that the Galaglass, obviously the main family, stay the constable. He's known as a constable. That's the main original, let's say, the Taoiseach family, the royal family of the Galaglass, the clan leader. but the ranks are filled with Irishmen because they obviously can't produce enough gallowglass that are being killed at the time. So yeah, it's a mixture of all these families, but MacLeod doesn't appear to have been given any land that we know of, and it seems they were if they were involved, they were most likely seasonal.
Fascinating stuff. Just finishing up now because you're getting a wee bit. The electric zapping isn't working. No, so we might have to put you off.
Started to go like, starting to melt. 3 hours.
What was it called?
15 minutes.
I'll just waffle for a wee bit there. Jim, I'm shocked you don't know about the Jacobite Wars. No way. What was it called? Jim, you need to get on the Jacobite Wars as quick as. That's kind of the last kind of major kind of clan wars between Britain and what was it called, Ireland, the kind of Jacobite Williamite Wars, because this is kind of the Jacobite Williamite Wars is when Scotland is finally kind of quelled and brought into the British Union. I wouldn't say it's a full-on like England versus Britain job at all, because of the fact that you have a lot of Scottish at that point. Would consider themselves British at that point. So it is a very kind of mixed bag when it comes down to the identity of what is to be British, on the island of Britain, compared to Ireland, where once the Jacobite War kicks off, the Jacobite Williamite War kicks off, that's it. The whole Ireland is just like, right, get that, what was it called? Harp up. We're going to take back our lands against Britain. And that's why war kicks off all the way up to 1803. Where Lord Edward Fitzgerald is murdered by the British as they push in for the Union and to fully bring Ireland into British control, which turns into a complete disaster for us because they just take all our food. But regardless, the Williamite Jacobite Wars, get on top of that one, William. Was it Jim? Because you'd absolutely love that one.
I do have a video which clans fought at Culloden. So which names quite a lot of families and individuals who are at the Battle of Culloden, and it does have a lot of backstory to what's happening. So again, it's an old video, so I apologize for the quality, but it does have some good information.
Yeah, but no, the Williamite Jacobite Wars, that's kind of the last final kind of clan wars that we see in Ireland, because by the time you get up to the Irish Rebellion of 1798, it's kind of more of a nationalist war than a proper kind of medieval kind of clan war. I wouldn't say medieval as it was during the 9 Years' War and the previous wars we had, like the end of the 100 Years' War with the Butler Talbot feud, or the Wars of the Roses in Ireland, or the Gaelic clan wars, or the Tudor conquest. They were proper like clan wars against the English. But the Williamite Jacobite Wars is where it starts to blur into that kind of nationalism. And then as you get into the Irish Rebellion of 1798, that's where it's very nationalist. It'd be very difficult to find a proper clan war whatsoever, to be honest with you, in there. It's proper nationalist at that point. And then 1803, that's where the British finally completely crush us in Ireland. So definitely, if you haven't read into the Williamite and Jacobite Wars, definitely get in there, because when it comes down to the whole imagery of like tartan and kilts and all that kind of stuff, Williamite and Jacobite Wars, that's the one, because the wars to do with, from the Scottish War of Independence and stuff, that's still very medieval. It's not so much like, Scottish Highlands and all that kind of stuff. Williamite and Jacobite Wars is where you get the kind of, Highland experience of Outlander and all that kind of stuff. So if you haven't looked into it, like the TV show Outlanders, that's set during the Williamite Jacobite Wars, so definitely get on top of that as well. What was it called? The first Jacobite rebellion was James trying to get his throne back. Bang on. That was definitely James trying to get his thing. A lot of the first Jacobite War, a lot of that was fought in Ireland. There's a good bit of it in Scotland, but the big chunk of it was fought in Ireland, and it's very much the blur of the Williamite Jacobite Wars. And then after that one, it blurred, because the Williamite Jacobite Wars are kind of a blur because there's a lot of private wars inside there as well, but it blurs into what is it called, the proper Jacobite Wars, which are, you know, the kind of second rebellion and stuff over in Scotland, and then the second rebellion onwards. If me, because Michal specializes more in this than I do, but the second fighting, the majority of that, a good chunk of that, is fought in Scotland. And so, you know, the romanticization that we have today of clan warfare, a lot of that comes out of the second Jacobite War. Why? Because a lot of stuff that identified us as kind of clan based is banned from the second rebellion, because they really wanted to get rid of this whole medieval clan system in places like Scotland and Ireland. And even today, like, you still see the Irish government trying to crack down and remove a lot of stuff that's going on. Just pop over to this question as well. No one thought Mel Gibson could play a convincing Scotsman, but no. Mel Gibson is brilliant, you know. I actually like Mel Gibson. I get on with him a lot. I knew Mel Gibson since I was 5 years of age with the movie Braveheart. I have a lot of cousins and so many friends that actually played the role in what was it, Braveheart. I have a lot of memories from the Battle of Stirling Bridge, which didn't have a bridge, and also on top of that, what was it called? You have that siege in York, which was actually done in Trim Castle. I have a lot of family, relatives, and also friends that were actually on top of. See where the ram comes in to ram the gate. I have a lot of family and friends that were extras up on the walls itself, chucking stuff down on top of Mel Gibson back then. But yeah, Mel Gibson, lovely, lovely man from my family's experience and stuff. Very laid back, very nice man and stuff. I personally wouldn't have anything bad to say about Mel Gibson. I know a lot of people jump on the, you know, Mel Gibson's a jerk thing, but personally, I compared to other celebrities, I don't really see it with Mel Gibson. So I will stand up from there, to be honest with you. Trying to finish up the whole Jacobite thing, but we'll drag what was it, Michal, for a wee bit as I finish up the conversation with the William Knight Jacobite Wars. The Jacobite War was the start of Pearly. Yeah, it's funny though, because of the fact, Ryan. Later on, then you have what was it called? The Irish Rebellion of 1798 and 1803. Which is actually led by the Protestants. It was the Protestants that led that rebellion against the British, because the British were looking to take over. They were looking to get rid of the Irish Parliament and take over complete control of the Irish, what was it called, Ireland. So it's still very funny, but you're bang on right. Like, that is the start of the sectarian violence, especially with the Siege of Derry and stuff. So the roots are definitely there with that one. Michal, you said a very interesting thing, that the Irish Rebellion of 1798 and 1803 isn't taught in schools in Northern Ireland. Yeah, that's true, isn't it, though? The fact that that's not taught in schools in Northern Ireland.
I wasn't taught when I was younger.
Yeah.
But then, well, no, wait, that's a misconception. It's taught in Catholic schools. It's
Okay.
not taught in integrated
But
schools.
it's funny because you said it was very funny because of the fact that it's a huge part of President history. The fight for the Irish Parliament and stuff, and they're not taught their own history. Yeah, it is very, 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 very funny.
I find it weird, like today, that we owe Presbyterians a lot for the revival and survival of the Irish language.
Yeah.
And yet today in modern politics, it's not just Presbyterians, but certainly people of, who've combined obviously the Troubles made Protestants sort of galvanized together in sort of some weird political union that's held together by masking tape and prick stick. But the people who would sort of associate themselves with the Presbyterian faith would have any hatred towards Irish at all, since, like I said, they helped keep it alive. They helped promote it, and they were always the kicking. After Catholics, they were the second most hated religious group by British establishment and subsequent previous English establishments. So, but like I say, I suppose it just, for a group that sort of associates very well, with tries to have that link to
buzz.
Oh,
Poor Mihal's
we're
brain
pausing.
is fried.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
it's grand. Yeah. What was it called? I'll leave you go off to sleep there. I'll finish up there. And obviously, lads, thank you so much. Scott bring up a very good point as well. I just want to cover Scott's point about the fact that the tricolour does actually, like, that's the point where the tricolour does start to appear. The ideas of it, we don't get the tricolour itself until after the American Civil War. Well, just before the American Civil War, we have the tricolour. Although the tricolour doesn't appear during the American Civil War, the French gave it to God, it's the favorite. What was it? The top general for the Irish Americans in the American Civil War. It is Maher, isn't it? Oh my God, I should know his name. I read his book and everything. But anyway, regardless, the Irish Americans, they used the harp flag during the American Civil War. But the tricolour does exist during the American Civil War. It's just not used during the American Civil War, but it does exist. It was a gift from the French to the Irish, and then the Irish Americans had brought it over, but they used the harp flag. Like, you get that famous image of the Irish Americans holding their own in the American Civil War, and it's always the harp that's flying during those famous battles and stuff. The Battle of Gettysburg and so on and so forth, where the Irish Americans held their own. But anyway, we need to leave Mihal go to sleep because he's starting to KO there. Go on there,
I will just
Mihal.
add though that like what a symbol's meant to mean and what it actually can mean to people, it changes over time. So you can say that this is what the flag means, but to someone who's maybe Protestant from the Ulster, he's always going to associate it with Republican terrorism. So you can tell him it doesn't matter what he thinks. This is what, it's the same with the poppy. The poppy is a symbol meant to remember soldiers in all conflicts. But at the same time, while it's still painted on loyalist terrorists' murals, it's not going to mean that to anyone from the other side. So what symbolism means, it changes. So we're just got to be careful with that.
It's funny because I don't want any history being erased, like the symbol, the poppy being used with the what was it, the Limerick branch, because what the Limerick branch do with the poppy to celebrate World War I is they have the poppy and the shamrock together. But as you said there, people associate it with Bloody Sunday and bloody this and bloody that. So it is funny. It's the same thing with the tricolour there, how the tricolour became a symbol of terrorism during the Troubles and stuff. And that's why when people are pushing for United Ireland, it's trying to include presidents that were affected during the Troubles because they associate the tricolour in a negative way. So it's trying to do everything in a positive way, but at the same time, not trying to lose our history. Is very, very funny. Anyway, as people are trying to talk Mihal into bed, thank you so much, guys, for all the support today. The biggest way right now you can definitely support me is definitely head over to YouTube, to Irish Medieval History, and give me a subscription. Give it to me now, because of the fact that I'm actually literally just over the tip of hitting that 30K, which would be it would mean so much to me, to be honest with you guys. And right now, the support I've gotten over on YouTube right now, especially with this live stream and stuff, absolutely amazing. I just want to thank everybody. We had a very successful stream today. I made a good bit of pocket money so I can pay my bills this week. So very happy and delighted with that, guys. Absolutely thrilled with that one. Obviously, if you want to support me further, go over to my Patreon as well. Give whatever little pocket money you have and stuff. Absolutely means the world to me. And obviously, as well, on top of that, of course, I do classes every Sunday. It's about 20 quid a month, which you can sign on to over on my Patreon. So definitely head over there and have an old gawk and look for yourself. Even if you're not giving any money, have an old gawk for yourself as well over to my Patreon on Irish Medieval History. The link should be over on my YouTube as well. Also, on top of that, Mihal, what's the best way to support your channel if you don't fall asleep on us?
The best way is, like I say, do you know what? The best way is just to subscribe and turn up for the lives. And you know what? Like, if you can't afford to be a member or super fan on TikTok, don't worry about it, because just every little helps. Even just turning up, asking the questions, keeping the lives going is always great. But if you really you have a couple of pennies in the back pocket, become a super fan, become a member, and I repay that lovely contribution with a Thursday live every week, chosen by my members and super fans. So you know, I return the love back. But thank you very much for the gifts for tonight and all the gifts and money and whatever. I don't have to send feet pics to anyone, so that's always nice now.
Hey, I do those for free on Instagram. So if you want feet pic, go over to Irish Medieval on Instagram. Absolutely no problems there. Just give it away for free. Like many things that I do. But other than that, guys,
Moped Mike, thank you very much for the super sticker, $1.99. I don't know who that went to, but thank you very much.
I think it's over to you again, Mihal. But other than that, guys, thank you so much for all the support tonight. But other than that, guys, thanks very much, and